75 years old, and I still wake up with a little guy saluting me.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy.
You wanted this, right? You wanted the real deal? That's what this is. Wake up. You're in the middle of it.
You better wake up and listen to what you're saying.
Which is a morning show. Wake up.
What the hell? Wake up, everyone.
The Colts benching former first-round pick Anthony Richardson and turning to veteran Joe Flacco.
The reaction I got from people was like, of course they're benching him. Like it wasn't even an option.
And Joe Flacco being the guy you learn from, I think that's not a bad thing.
Boys, I forgot the Colts are playing football this weekend.
Is today a turn-the-page day?
Sunday
to
night
some
football.
extent.
Let me mention that. And speaking of Sunday night football, the Hall of Famer, the man that led the Colts to the Super Bowl in 2006, Tony Dungy, going to join us here coming up at 8:30. Yes, Andy Sweeney, I guess we would call this a turn-the-page Friday. Good Friday morning to you. I am Kevin Bowen. That was the voice of Andy Sweeney. Mark Dykton is always on the ones and twos. Do we have Taylor Swift in studio?
We do not. No, we don't.
Downtown
So I
was dead quiet. I was driving downtown thinking,
Don't say that.
Are we going to see? There's nobody out.
Well, it's 6 a.m. when you're driving in. What do you expect?
I'm like, are we going to have some Swifties that are, tailgating for 12 hours here?
Well, I would imagine they got to go to school today, don't they? Are the most of the Swifties in school? I mean, not all of them.
I was told 89% of people are coming from out of town. Where are these people?
Well,
where are the tour buses? No one's at the Conrad?
It's a fair point.
I was wondering how on the DL the tour buses are going to be, because I don't think they want anyone staking out where she's at.
Oh, you think? Yeah, I'm sure that's a secret
drop
location.
Her off in the dead of night and then
in all seriousness, where do you think she sleeps the night
well, that's
before
not a
the
creepy
concert?
question at all.
Do you think she's at the Conrad? Do we think she just sleeps on the tour bus?
Well, there's a hotel with a giant picture of herself on.
If she's staying in any hotel, she has to have what? 2 floors, at least an entire floor, like she's a football team.
That sounds miserable for that hotel.
Well, money's money, brother.
Maybe
I don't know what you're talking
really
about.
goes on the DL and stays like the Days Inn or something.
That'd be great. It's the La Quinta Inn on the south side.
Yeah, it's funny
because no one would believe you. Said I saw Taylor Swift in the sauna. At the
you guys
Days
will
Inn.
like this.
Checkers. This is chess.
I got to find out which hotel room this was. This was back in the day. I followed. I was at the combine here in Indy. This is when I was in Southern Indiana, and my company put me up. God, I forget where it was. It was in the north end somewhere, but they put me up in the absolute most junk hotel that you could ever find. I'm like, why'd y'all do me like this? What are you doing? There's 35 hotels right next to Lucas Oil in downtown Indianapolis. Is known to have every hotel known to mankind. Why are you doing that? But, listen, we may have people staying at our house who are going to Taylor Swift this weekend. I found that out yesterday, right before we went trick-or-treating.
For money or just for good friendship?
No, for good friendship.
Oh,
yeah,
well.
To be a good person, not to rack up $1,000 this weekend.
Very nice on your end. Plenty to get to. Colts and Vikings. Again, Sunday Night Football coming up. As I said, Tony Dungy going to join us here at 8:30. The Pacers down in, on Bourbon Street tonight. They've got the Pelicans, a very banged-up New Orleans Pelicans team. Our coverage will begin here on the Fan 7:30, 8 o'clock tip for that one. And it indeed looks like Curtis Rourke will be back in the starting lineup. You heard that on our airways last night inside IU football. Kurt Cignetti saying that he took all the reps Wednesday and Thursday in practice, so just one game missed for IU's starting quarterback in East Lansing tomorrow. That is Peacock. That is 3:30.
Yeah, it's an 8. We were talking about this before we came on the air. It's an 8-point spread, and every single metric says that my man Cignetti should walk into East Lansing and just beat down Michigan State. We'll see if that happens. You know what's also funny? I guess it's not funny, but you know what I mean about Curtis Rourke. There's 2 things. Number one, if you're going to have a magical season, you need a little bit of luck. And Curtis Rourke only missing 1 game in a game against a much inferior opponent in Washington that you could win. There is a little bit of luck there that he's not out a month, right? When you saw him get injured, you thought, okay, week to week. To me, that's a 3-week injury when you talk week to week. And whether it's when he was injured or even last night here on the Fan, Kirk Cignetti gives you the truth. He's like, I'm just going to announce it. I'm going to announce it on a, Thursday. Yeah, he's going to be a starter. It's not going to be, we're going to take it up to Saturday. He's a game time decision. He's questionable. None of that. Let's go, big boy. And Rourke is ready to go, and I think Indiana keeps it going. And then just quickly for me, boy, I tell you, I don't know how much Thursday night football you watch. We'll get to Halloween. I assume you guys had a great trick or treat.
Great time.
I'm sure.
Yeah, weather cooperated.
We'll give
very
stories as we go today, but you can make the argument that, hey, maybe the reason they made the move with Anthony Richardson and Joe Flacco was what you saw last night with the Houston Texans. And it stinks that you've lost to them twice because that Texans team is beat up. Did Will Anderson come back into the game?
He did.
I mean, multiple offensive linemen, a dirty play last night on C.J. Stroud, Thomas, and I forget his name on the defensive line there for the Jets. Leg whipped, if you will, C.J. Stroud. He got sacked, 10 times last night? Boy, Nico Collins could be back next week, but that Texans team right now is absolutely hurting. It really is.
Certainly one of the greatest catches you'll ever see. Garrett Wilson in the end zone last night really turned that game in the Jets' favor. They did pull away. That final score probably looks, well, I guess it was 21-13 because Houston kicked a late field goal there, but it was much closer than that. Rodgers really just kind of chucked one up to Wilson on a 3rd and a million, and he comes down with it. And then certainly C.J. Stroud, as Andy said, under siege all night long there. We will see if the return of Nico Collins starts to get them back on track. But they're in primetime each of the next 2 weeks, Detroit and Dallas. Again, entering last night, what you needed, if you were the Colts to get back into the AFC South picture, you needed a 3-game differential the rest of the way. So 9 games left. Houston just lost 1 game. So what you needed before last night was 6-3 and 3-6.
Yep.
Do you feel more confident about the Colts going 6-3 or the Texans going 3-6? I ask that in all seriousness.
Yeah. I probably, I still would. I don't know. I don't think the Colts are going to win a bunch of games here. I think they're going to be, sticking right at an 8 or 9 win team. But I don't know. I mean, where do you sit? Because Houston, I don't know, man. Houston's got some issues. They got some issues, man.
They certainly have offensive line issues. Their schedule, I think, is pretty difficult if you look at it as well. But there is an element of, I felt like Houston has had offensive line issues since the start of last season.
I know.
And yet, here they are. What's their record since the start of last year? I mean, it's something pretty impressive. And again, does Nico Collins return? Does that help them out? They'll get their top linebacker back last week. They have major offense. They need the mini bye week.
No kidding.
Badly on that end. So the Jets do get it done there on Thursday night.
Can I add one thing to this? If you're a Colts fan, and then we'll move on, obviously all the Anthony Richardson stuff, and today is mostly KB. What do we think's going to happen here? What do fans want to happen on Sunday with all the Anthony Richardson and Joe Flacco nonsense? The only saving grace that I can give Colts fans, besides a beat-up Texans team, is what is getting ready to happen. The Texans next week, they host the Lions on Sunday Night Football. Why does that matter? It matters because when you play the Lions, you lose the next week. So we're talking about, KB, if the Texans lost to the Lions at home, which could happen, obviously, next week, every team that plays the Lions, the next week they lose, they go at Dallas, do the Texans the week after Detroit. We could be looking at a Texans team that has lost 3 straight games and 4 out of 5. The problem is the one game they would have won would have been against you. But that's not crazy. That's not crazy that we sit here in a couple weeks and the Texans have lost 3 straight games.
They still have Baltimore. They still have Kansas City left on that schedule. Now, of course, the Colts have a pretty difficult November here set up for you. Joe Flacco under center Sunday nights. Again, it will be the Colts and the Vikings, and it looks like a rookie at left tackle for the Colts with Bernard Ryman missing a second straight day of practice. We'll get more into Matt Gonzalez. We've had this man on the show before.
Yes,
we
we
had
have.
dump button Matt Gonzalez, if I remember correctly, maybe a couple of times in our interview with the third-round pick out of Pittsburgh. This will actually be his first start since last September. He missed the final 9 games of his college career at Pittsburgh due to a foot injury. So that's what it looks like. Over under 1.5 snaps for Anthony Richardson on Sunday.
I'm going to say under. I'm surprised.
No short yardage package for Anthony Richardson?
You think he'll be the Cordell Stewart? The slash? Remember, we've had callers. JMV has had callers, and we've all poo-pooed that away. What if Steichen goes to the Cordell Stewart role for Anthony Richardson for a couple weeks?
Boy,
That'd be fantastic.
I was the mask for Halloween when Cordell Stewart was playing football. I thought Cordell Stewart was like a legit quarterback. Was he Taysom Hill? Did I miss something here?
Well, I think you're probably right. Well, early on he wasn't.
Was he not?
Right? No, it wasn't the quarterback he came in with. Was it Maddox?
I thought it was Neil O'Donnell.
Or was it Neil O'Donnell? Are they different? They're about the same. Close enough.
So you don't like Anthony Richardson, the short yardage rule Sunday night? To me, it makes total sense.
I like him. Do you think they'll do it?
Keep him engaged, keep him on the field.
I think it's a good idea, but do you think they'll do it?
I feel like every time the Colts have had Joe Flacco in short yardage, it's been Trey Sermon stuffed to the line of scrimmage.
Well, hopefully this time it'll be Jonathan Taylor stuff at the line of scrimmage. How do we think Flacco will do? And, as we go today, it's I know this is – I think there's a few things, and I know Stephen Holder was doing a lot of tweeting about this yesterday, and I'm just pointing him out that, it feels like this was – for sure a surprising decision the more quotes you get from players and leaders and good players in that Colts locker room. And then on top of it, KB, it almost feels like at times, while it's a surprising move, it might be a little bit unpopular. And I'm interested in that as well. I'm interested in what, fans think is going to happen. And then on top of it, I wonder if there's a segment of the people who are so obsessed with the future and Anthony Richardson, do they want Joe Flacco to go out there and throw the ball 35 times and throw for 318 yards and a couple touchdowns and possibly get the win on Sunday? So those are things that we'll talk about today. And then on top of it, I'm excited to talk to Tony Dungy at 8:30.
Yeah, again,
I'm jacked for that.
Tony Dungy coming up at 8:30. The Vikings side of it, they started off 5-0. They have lost their last two. Their defense has been really it's a very poor pass defense, which, if you think back to that Jacksonville game, that was Jacksonville. Flacco certainly put up big numbers in that one. So something to keep an eye on. But again, their blitz rate, the highest in the NFL. Their pressure rate, the highest in the NFL. It's a very exotic defense with Brian Flores. They will get their Pro Bowl tight end, TJ Hawkinson, back. He will be making his debut. New left tackle for them coming up on Sunday. That's Cam Robinson, who comes over from Jacksonville this week in a trade. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. But Minnesota's on that little bit of a was that fool's gold, the 5-0 start?
Sure.
Is this a little bit more reality? And again, they're in right now the best division in football. So any loss, even to an AFC team, would have some ramifications on that. I've always thought, and maybe it's a question for Matt Taylor when he joins us at 9. I've always thought it's one of the more underrated environments in the entire NFL. This might be the hardest, loudest road environment the Colts face all season long. I don't know, maybe Denver later in the year if Denver somehow is
maybe.
in it.
Yeah.
But I've always thought that this venue is a really underrated road environment. And I think in primetime that place would probably be pretty loud coming up on Sunday night.
Oh, you mean at New England's not going to be the loudest atmosphere for the Colts, or at I was going to say the Meadowlands in Jersey to take on the Giants when they'll be limping with a 4-win team? That won't be the loudest.
Yeah.
By the way, you'll find a lot of good tickets on those games.
Going through the road schedule the rest of the way, and I don't hear a lot of, the silent count will be needed for 60 minutes in those. So we'll chat about all of that. Again, the Pacers, they do get another situation tonight where it looks like the injuries are playing into their favor. Miles Turner and Andrew Nembhard are still questionable, but New Orleans missing several notable pieces for that one. Again, that is an 8 o'clock tip. And college football this weekend, Purdue's going to play both quarterbacks against Northwestern. We'll see if they get their, I guess, only real good remaining win of the season. And IU will go back to their starter in Curtis Rourke. Penn State, Ohio State, that obviously the marquee one.
Oh, yeah, it's a big one.
James Franklin finally get it done.
I was about to say 2 choking coaches against good teams. Something has to give in this one. Oh, it's such a huge game for Penn State. It really is, right? James Franklin never wins the big game. If they lose this one, everyone will roll their eyes at Penn State the rest of the way.
Who is it bigger for?
It's probably bigger for Ohio State, given they have a loss, right?
I was going to say, maybe for Penn State's, overall feeling on James Franklin's inability to win the big one, but then, damn, if Ohio State loses another, they still, for what it's worth, they still have Indiana and Michigan on the schedule.
Well, Ohio State this weekend.
3 losses ain't getting you in.
No, Ohio State, if they got their second loss, and then the second one, a team like Clemson, the ACC's trying to get 2 teams in, Clemson as well. This is their last chance to lose, I think, before they get to the ACC championship game. They do. I mean, I think they'll win that game, but again, it's a one-score game. If you look at their schedule, South Carolina, it's Citadel, it's stuff like that. So we shall see. Busy weekend of college football. Obviously, all the Colts and Vikings. We'll talk about Tony Dungy at 8:30. Also, Greg Rakestraw, his normal 8 o'clock hour. Matt Taylor coming up in the 9. We'll pick the game. We'll give you our picks as well. Coming up on the other side, what did Shane Steichen, what does he want to see Sunday there in Minnesota? Plus your news and scores from overnight. Appreciate you waking up with us. Morning check down next here. It's a football Friday. Not just a Friday, a football Friday right here on The Fan.
Checkdown, brought to you by Marion University Football, pursuing another NAIA championship this season. Don't miss the on-campus action at Ascension St. Vincent Field. Visit NUnites.com for tickets.
All right, coming up 8:30, Tony Dungy. Obviously, he is part of Sunday Night Football. He is going to be in Minneapolis for that one. First time since December 2022, the Colts playing on Sunday Night Football. So the great Tony Dungy going to join us at 8:30 as we lead into a morning checkdown.
Yeah, KB, let's start right there. It's coming up on Sunday night. NBC can hear it right here. Coverage Sunday night, 5:30, right here on The Fan. Now, the spread has moved. You know, Joe Flacco getting the job a couple days ago has moved about 1.5 points. So it opened at 7, and currently it's a 5-point spread. So not surprising, a little bit more respect for Joe Flacco. So if you're going to bet the game, it keeps coming down. It sits currently at 5. Now, this is from 2 days ago. Shane Steichen, in the midst of all of the Anthony Richardson and Joe Flacco conversation, was asked about, hey, what do you want to see from your team on Sunday Night Football?
I want to see them fight and scratch and claw. You know what I mean? Obviously, we're going in to try to win a football game. It's going to be an electric atmosphere on Sunday night. They're a damn good team. It's going to be loud. Our communication's got to be at a premium, especially in the noise. So we're going to go out there and try to win the football game.
You mentioned the Vikings. They've lost 2 in a row. They're looking to break that streak. Of course, the Lions and Rams in close games there. Like I said, 5:30 hour coverage right here on The Fan.
Again, expect Matt Gonzalez, the rookie third-round pick, to be the left tackle with Bernard Ryman still in concussion protocol. And Kwity Paye did pop up on the injury report yesterday with a hamstring injury.
What did you make of that?
You know, anytime you see a guy not on it Wednesday, limited Thursday, doesn't that mean they suffer an injury in practice?
Yeah, and it's a hamstring, and that just
right. Those can be finicky, you know.
Yeah,
so just something,
like
and I feel like he's had hamstrings before, so something to keep an eye on here. Final practice of the week coming up later this morning. How about Jason Hammer? All that man does is make us money here on Thursdays. That's exactly what Jason Hammer did last night. He told us at 9:30 the Jets would cover. He told us Aaron Rodgers completions over 21.5.
Although they had like 3 drops in the first half, and I'm screaming at the television. Come on!
He told us over 1.5 touchdowns. Thank you, Garrett Wilson, for that.
You, yes.
And Tank Dell had a big night as well. That was a lot of money. And if you still believe the AFC South door is cracked, Houston certainly opened it up a little bit more last night. Really a big fourth quarter from Garrett Wilson, especially, and the Jets as they pull away. C.J. Stroud sacked 8 times. There were several moments I thought Stroud was, like, legitimately hurt and maybe wasn't going to come back in the game. He finished the game for what it's worth. So, mini bye week upcoming for the Texans. And as Andy pointed out to lead off the show, they are in primetime against the Lions and the Cowboys each of the next 2 weeks.
See, Mark, that's why you put the Jets and Aaron Rodgers on national television, even though it's still Amazon Prime. That's why they're on primetime, because the old man, the old 40-year-old, can still bring it. He can still sling 3 touchdowns. I got to be honest. I thought C.J. Stroud might have, like, had a bad shin injury. I thought he might have broken something. He got leg whipped.
Right
that looked
before
nasty.
halftime.
Oh,
yeah.
dude, that looked nasty. It was a dirty play.
You know, again,
it was a dirty play.
I thought when Buckner hit him last week, he was hurt. I mean, you want to talk about a tough kid. That's certainly C.J. Stroud, because that offensive line has some major issues for the Texans. Tonight in New Orleans, Pacers and Pelicans. This is an 8 o'clock tip there. New Orleans just coming back from a West Coast trip. And as we mentioned a little bit earlier, they are banged up. DeJounte Murray, broken left hand, so he will not play tonight. Herb Jones, Trey Murphy. I feel like there's one more.
Is Brandon Ingram playing?
Ingram and Zion.
Zion are good.
I guess Zion.
Is Zion going to play?
Zion, you never really know, right?
You never do know.
But
no, you don't.
They are not listed for what it's worth in the injury report. Pacer legend Daniel Tice is questionable for this one. C.J. McCollum. That's the other one.
That's the other one. He's a good player, too.
On the front there.
They have a nice team.
Again, the Pacers, they do have a couple guys questionable. Miles Turner, Andrew Nemhard, but they are favored by 3 in this one.
College football this weekend. We've talked a lot about it. Purdue Northwestern, noon on the Big Ten Network. Purdue favored by 1. You said this, and I did not know this. For some reason, they're going to commit to playing both quarterbacks. Why? Is there a reason they're playing both quarterbacks?
Because you're dynamic. You catch the defense off guard.
You catch them off guard? Okay.
That's how you turn your season around.
If they don't win this game, they're not winning one. So this is it. This is the game. Like, honestly, if they lose this one, they're going 1-11.
They're not going to beat IU in the bucket game and knock IU out of the playoff contention.
Cignetti's going to put up 50. You kidding me? Signetti's going to run the score up on Purdue, which is going to make that offseason even worse. There, Indiana, it's a 3:30 game at Michigan State. One thing we haven't talked about, it's a peacocker. It's a peacock game.
It is.
So if you want to watch it, you better dial up your $7.99 a month subscription. Come on, JMV. You better get going. Let's go.
Bye week for my Irish. IU Marion in the exhibition slate tonight from Assembly Hall. That is Pat Knight returning down there for that Big Ten Plus. If you need to dust off even more subscriptions on that end, and high school football tonight, it'll be a crispy one.
Yeah, it's a big night, though.
As now we have gotten to everybody, 5A, 6A, joining the fray here. A lot of drama with this Danville-Burbuff game from last week.
Have you read about this? You got to ask Rakestraw about this at 8 o'clock.
So my father is a proud Danville grad.
Oh, is he? Okay.
I was on the couch last Friday night. I believe Pacers-Knicks. I think the Pacers were down 70 at that point of the game.
I was about to say they're down 32.
And I got wind that this Danville-Burbuff game was turning into an epic one.
Okay.
So I dialed up Rake.
Did
so
you?
I actually
Okay.
watched
it
live.
Okay.
Fiasco would be a compliment.
Yeah.
I side with my father's alma mater. The Danville Warriors got jobbed.
Yeah,
They should be playing tonight.
Listen, I'm totally
Stand
fine
up
with
for the
you.
public schools.
Boy.
The private schools get everything.
They get everything in this country. I don't know. I should have dialed up Rake.
We
I don't
need
know
a
what I was
30 for
doing on
30
Friday
on
night.
this drama.
We do, man. I don't know what happened. The game ended. The refs come back on the field. We'll have Rake explain it because I know he was there. That has to go in the pantheon of great games that Rakestraw seen. It's got to be up there.
Danville should be playing tonight.
You're damn right they should. Come on, what are we doing?
High school football tonight. Again, sectionals will get underway with all of that. And that pretty much, I think, is a bow tie on everything on my end. Again, Ohio State, Penn State. That's the marquee one. Noon kick coming up tomorrow for college football.
All right, coming up on the other side, what do we think happens with Joe Flacco? What do fans want to happen with Joe Flacco and the Colts on Sunday night? We'll discuss. Appreciate you waking up with us. Reminder, in an hour, Tony Dungy joins us here. It's a Football Friday on the Fan.
Mark Dykton, will you Swift it up for every re-entry this morning?
Maybe. We want to get as many listeners as we can, right?
I would think everyone out of
That's
state
our demo.
is tuning in to us for those Taylor Swift re-entries. Tonight, tomorrow, Sunday, inside of Lucas Oil Stadium, T. Swift and company. Something I thought about with Sunday Night Football. Again, the Colts haven't been on it since December 2022. You get the player intros. Are you guys fans of that?
Oh, yeah, I always like the player intros. I like to guess where they went to college. That's mostly what I like to do.
Kind of the random colleges is who I'm always curious about.
Guy throws out his high school or elementary school or something like that. Always like it, sure.
And I thought, the Colts have several of them defensively. Kenny Moore will get a Valdosta State. EJ Speed will give us Tarleton State.
Tarleton State, oh, yeah.
Albany, this is Georgia Albany from Big Grove. I would love to see Ashton Doolin start because Ashton Doolin went to Malone College that no longer has a football team.
Oh, my good. I was going to ask you, and you said Doolin. I have no idea where he went to college.
He was like a D2 finalist for their Heisman Trophy there. So that will be part of Sunday night. And, again, I'm not one that's like, well, the Colts have history doing well, so that means they're going to do well Sunday night. The Colts have won some big games on Sunday Night Football in moments like this of like they are a 5-7 point underdog. They won at Kansas City in 2019 in kind of a slugfest. They won in a bomb cyclone, awful weather in San Francisco a couple of years back. So we'll see if they can drum up any of that magic.
Yeah, well, they need to again, and they could be again. My analysis, and we'll give our picks at about 8:45. Tony Dungy going to join us in a little bit less than an hour. He'll be on the coverage for Sunday Night Football. We're going to get to Anthony Richardson here. Do you want to do that here? Or you want to start with Joe Flacco here? Because
Let's start with the starter. We've done so much Richardson.
Flacco's the conversation now.
I did get a question I want to get to of how do you think the locker room feels about this move, but. Yeah, Andy, your thoughts, Flacco related in regards to, again, a defense that is allowing a lot of yards, passing yards, Minnesota, but from a blitz and pressure standpoint, they are the best in the NFL.
Well, what's interesting about this is going to be the perception. And, this is not a game that you can hide at 1 o'clock. This is, people are going to be watching. This is Sunday Night Football. Everyone's watching this. It's not a game, it's not one of 7 or 8 games that Scott Hansen is bouncing around to on NFL Red Zone. So for me, what I probably find most interesting, besides the local fan, I'm sure there's a local fan that is so unhappy that Anthony Richardson isn't going to play, or at least we believe he's not going to play, definitely not start, that, they're apathetic going into this game. Maybe they don't want to see Joe Flacco ball out, but, my thing is, I think there's a lot of NFL people that understand and support what the Colts are doing. I think it's very split. I don't know what the actual split is. I think there's people taking runs at them. I think 1,000% there is. The Athletic did a piece where they had obvious executives around the NFL who remained anonymous, and they kind of gave their thoughts on what the Colts did here. And it was very much split of what we've talked about, KB, and that is, of course, they're benching him. They want to win games. Their general manager and coach, they need to win games, and you're not going to sit around and have this type of lackluster quarterback play. And then there's the other side, obviously, of he needs to play to get better. But my main takeaway, I think, is, the Colts could look really good here, or they could look potentially really bad. If they look terrible on offense and Joe Flacco can't get away from anybody and he's throwing interceptions and he looks like the Joe Flacco, by the way, who played in Houston when he was with Cleveland in the playoffs last year, we're going to sit in here Monday and say, now what? We thought Joe Flacco would be a lot better, and he stunk it up. And then the flip side is if Joe Flacco goes out there, and I don't know if this would mean a win or just a very close game, and goes out there and throws for 385 yards and 3 touchdowns. And suddenly Michael Pittman isn't one catch. And, Alec Pierce is not just one catch or 0 catches. And Josh Downs, who has been so good for the most part with Flacco, even though he was good last week with AR, has a really good game. And the tight ends look like they're part of the offense and everything else. The Colts, we could sit here and say, wow, the Colts made the right decision, especially with Houston being pretty injured. So I think that's what's at stake here is, Monday, I don't know if we're walking in here Monday talking about, yes, a win or a loss, but also if they look like clowns with the decision they made, or if they look really smart with the decision they're going to make. I think Flacco's going to be solid. I don't think he's going to be a mess. I also don't know if that means he's going to win the game on Sunday.
Why aren't the Colts pass catchers getting open? I had that thought on Monday. Like, why are Houston's dudes more open than the Colts dudes? And it's like, is Anthony Richardson not throwing with anticipation? Are they open, or is this an issue? Because that's
got to be some of it.
That's
right?
a question I have, and that's, I guess, a little bit out of Flacco's hands, unless you do need a little bit more throwing with anticipation from quarterback. But I'd say a couple things stand out. Obviously, you would expect a more efficient passing game. Josh Downs fantasy owners are probably very happy about this. And then when it comes to pass protection, certainly your O-line needs to be pristine. But also, can Flacco keep you out of some of those pressures that seemingly were constant the last 2 weeks? I mean, I thought Miami and Houston, from a blitz standpoint, just got after Anthony Richardson a lot. Now, again, Richardson Houdini'd out of virtually all of it. But still, if you get to Flacco, Flacco's going down. Like, if you got to Richardson, something crazy could still have happened there. And then I would say the one thing that is a question mark would certainly be, as much as Josh Downs is probably happy about this move, I'd venture to guess Jonathan Taylor is not. Because if you look at the run game numbers, with and without Richardson, it's pretty drastic in the differential negatively for Taylor, for even Trey Sermon. So that would be something that you have to keep an eye on. But again, what can Flacco identify pre-snap? What was Richardson not?
Right.
And what can Flacco, whatever. Hey, this is now going to be more on the front burner for this play. Move that to the back burner. What can he keep you out of post-snap that Richardson, you just had to rely on his God-given talents to try and do?
Well, yeah, and it's also what's AR not taking or not seeing that is easy and maybe a shorter pass instead of throwing the ball 45 yards down the field. I think that was the part. Earlier in the week, a lot of people on Monday especially, and a little bit on Tuesday before we got the news, were coming to the defense of Anthony Richardson that, hey, here's a drop by Goodson, or it's a wrong route by Pittman, it's a drop by this guy, Will Mallory, whatever it may be. And while I understand that, and context did matter to that conversation, there was also a lot of video breakdown of Richardson not taking an 8-yard completion and going down the field for a much more difficult play.
Yeah, they lived in 3rd and longs last week.
Yeah, you just can't do that. So I would imagine that would be one thing that will change. You mentioned Josh Downs. 23 of Downs' 32 catches are with Flacco. And that number would be even more lopsided if it weren't for last week. And then 29 of his 47 targets are with Flacco. So I'm expecting, I wrote it on the website, I'm expecting Josh Downs to have 6 catches and a touchdown and potentially even 100 yards. I really feel that way. Do you think the story Monday will be about the game or will be about the quarterback narrative and how the Colts look with Joe Flacco? Are they vindicated? Even if they lose, are they vindicated? If he goes and throws for 385 yards and they lose by a touchdown? I don't know.
I would say no, just because at this point they're all in on this win now. And to me, losses with Joe Flacco, it's like whoop-de-doo.
Right.
No one signed up
lost with Anthony Richardson.
No one signed up for the season with losses with Joe Flacco. Did anyone?
What about wins with Joe Flacco?
Maybe the
Flacco wins on Sunday.
Yeah, certainly the Flacco family did.
Yeah, well, I got thinking. You think Flacco's agent knew to put him in Indianapolis?
Were there other rumors? Was Miami ever a rumor?
Yeah. See, I don't remember. I got to be honest. I just don't remember. I mean, Flacco's one of those things. If you have a young quarterback, like we're dealing with here, you can make the argument you don't want him around just because he's so good. I don't know. Flacco's agents were smart. I mean, they also paid him. They paid him. I don't know what his other options were. Cleveland didn't want him. Cleveland also probably couldn't afford him with all the money into Deshaun Watson.
I know you weren't in the market at the time, but do you recall the Colts Vikings December 2022? The Colts blowing the biggest lead in NFL history.
Oh, yeah. I remember it. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I went back and
did you? Why?
Looked at that game.
Ugh.
I had forgotten this. Okay, so it's 33-0 at halftime. That's the biggest blown lead in NFL history.
I just can't believe it. I know.
It was 36-7 with 2 minutes to go in the third quarter.
Yeah.
It's not like, and this is honestly how the Colts and the Chiefs playoff comeback, Andrew Luck doing the Superman, T.Y. Hilton over the top. The Colts threw a pick on that opening drive of the third quarter. It's like sometimes we see these second half comebacks and it doesn't start right away. So the Vikings are down 36-7 with 2 minutes to go in the third quarter.
Yep, I'm looking at it right now.
Andy, they threw an interception and they turned the ball over on downs the rest of the game, and they still came back to force the game into overtime.
And they punted twice.
36-7.
They punted twice.
And they throw a pick.
Yeah.
And they turn it. I mean, imagine
they punted in overtime,
odds?
KB.
Overtime. It came down to the end.
Yeah, they
Greg
punted.
Joseph kicking a game-winning field goal. It was the first time in Colts franchise history they had scored a touchdown on offense, defense, and special teams, and yet Jeff Saturday and company still found a way to lose. So back to that site coming up here on Sunday night. Riley asks this.
Okay. What did Riley ask on this
Football Friday? Did you get the sense from players that the Anthony Richardson decision was out of Shane Steichen's hands?
No, I didn't. Now, if you did, I would. If people did, I did not even think about that. What I thought was, actually, let me go back. Okay, I can understand why a fan would see that, and maybe KB, you do feel that way as well. I viewed it as a surprise. And so you could say, well, given that it's a surprise, maybe it is out of Steichen's hand. My other thing was, given that it's a surprise, we've been harping the last 24 hours, hey, was AR not doing things? Was he not working as hard? Was he not being a professional? If all these players thought it to be a surprise, then was he really being as, and I hate using the word lazy, was that conversation not one that was going on within the locker room? I thought that, to me, was a little eyebrow raising. I almost took it as it was surprising. Was it an unpopular decision? Because it wasn't like everyone's like, can't wait to, rally around Joe Flacco. It was very much we still support Anthony. We're surprised this is the way it's going. What do you make of that? Because I thought you could see some of the comments over the last 36 hours and say, to some of the good players on this football team, it was almost an unpopular decision.
I'd say a couple things. Largely, the tap out was wrong by Richardson. I think players are pretty universal in that thought, but I thought the word that Joe Flacco used was accurate. It's not malicious. I mean, they all watch Richardson play the game of football. No one thinks he's soft at all. Maybe there is some work ethic that needs to be increased, but again, I don't think they view Richardson as this pompous, arrogant kid that just, we've all seen the videos. He's changing the tires on the side of the road. He's out in the community. Hell, last night he's passing out candies, climbing up in the tree, scaring people. I mean,
yeah, he's not a jackass.
Right. He's not just some punk. He's not George. Right. I mean, I get the vibe that, George Pickens is a little punkish.
Okay.
I don't get the vibe that Richardson is that. And I do think, and Ryan Kelly even said it yesterday, of damn, we're doing the quarterback carousel again.
Oh, yeah.
DeForest Buckner said that.
Oh, yeah.
As much as people are quick to say, hey, you've got guys in that locker room in their primes. They want to win now. You also have dudes like Kelly and Buckner, for example, that have done the revolving door, and they don't want to do that anymore because they know Flacco's 39. He turns 40 in January. So what's going to happen in September 2025? So, I mean, hell, Ryan Kelly's a free agent, so maybe that question needs to be asked. But I did not get the feeling that this locker room was like, we need to do this. We are so done with Richardson.
I agree with you.
Blah, 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 all of those things. We have to turn to Flacco. This is an absolute bust. I did not get that vibe. Offense, defense, young, old, captain, not. I would say one of the biggest Richardson supporters in that locker room is Quentin Nelson. And I certainly didn't get that vibe in listening to Nelson yesterday.
Okay, so the conversation, let's go. What's the gentleman's name? Riley?
Oh, yeah, Riley. Yes.
I guess that could be a female as well, so I apologize. But Riley messaged you. So does that make you feel more like, hey, this is more of a Jim Irsay and or Chris Ballard? This is coming from above Shane Steichen, because of course Steichen's going to say it was my decision. I don't think that doesn't mean anything.
Obviously, if your boss tells you anything, you're going to take that to heart, and it's probably going to influence you. But no, I actually do think ultimately it was Steichen's call, but still, there is part of me, and it's hard to know this, Andy. Part of me thought this was a moment for Steichen just to be like, Anthony, this is kind of the end-all, be-all. Right here, right now. You are in this building at 5:30 on Tuesday morning. You're going to sit with me.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get the ball out of your hands quick. You're in prime time, Sunday Night Football for the first time in your career. It's the biggest blitzing, highest pressure team in the NFL. We're going to have a total 180. I have failed you. You have not given the quarterback standard that is necessary. But right here, right now, instead of running from adversity, we're going to face it head on. And we have got last resort sounds like too extreme.
No, I think you're right.
But that's kind of the approach I would have liked to have seen this week. Now, again, if there are a lot of these off-the-field work ethic, and Steichen won't say that publicly, but if there are some of those, then maybe you act in a different manner. But I would have liked to have seen that approach, not run, face it, attack it, go all in on it, and see what happens.
I guess my thing has always been, what if they did that already? Not that we're going to change things at Sunday Night Football because obviously this week is a different game than others, but what if they have had those conversations for the last few weeks that, hey, you need to be there. Now, the flip side, and someone brought this up yesterday, it was a caller, and they're not totally wrong, and that is, while Anthony Richardson is benched, Shane Steichen is also culpable in this a little bit. I mean, you hire Shane Steichen to develop Anthony Richardson. So if Anthony Richardson isn't developing, this is also not on Billy Napier at Florida or a private quarterback coach or anything else. I mean, if Anthony went out there and was one of the better young quarterbacks, who gets the credit for that? KB, let me ask you, who gets the credit today? Shane Steichen gets the credit. We're talking about he's an offensive genius, and Chris Ballard nailed the high. I mean, you don't understand all the things that we're saying. So there is a certain extent here, especially with play calling, not running. I believe he can. I still think he thinks if he runs Anthony Richardson, he'll fumble or get injured. That's besides the point. But there wasn't hey, we're going to change the offense up. There wasn't good play calling at the end of some of these halves. You saw that last week. So listen, to a certain extent, Shane Steichen, for the first time here in Indy, is probably feeling the pressure of we need to win. We got to get to the playoffs. We're not developing a young quarterback. We got to give Irsay something. If we're not going to give him the star blossoming Anthony Richardson quarterback, we got to get to the playoffs, and the way to do that's Joe Flacco. But Steichen's more of a conversation going forward if they keep losing games than what we've talked about this week.
Let's go back to Monday. We're evaluating everything. How many times does Steichen say that?
I mean, he said it 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. What else are they evaluating?
What are the actions from that?
Yeah.
Is it just benching Richardson? Because that is clearly an action off of it.
I mean, what else could it be?
Well, that's why I asked him about play calling.
It's a good question.
I didn't think that he was actually going to give up the play calling, but I'm like, wait a minute. If you're evaluating everything, is there anything else personnel-wise we should pay attention to? I mean, offensive line-wise, they need a new left tackle for this week, so it sounds like a rookie there. Wide receiver playing time, what
would you do?
Michael Pittman Jr. with his back, is he still playing?
Right.
95% of the snaps? That's a big number for a guy right now that is clearly limited. I'm curious that. I think the answer is just Flacco for Richardson, which obviously is a big move, but still, what else? Again, someone asked earlier this week, the trade deadline's Tuesday. If you're win now and you're evaluating everything, does that mean you're all of a sudden aggressive? Come Tuesday?
Could you imagine if they traded him on Tuesday?
Well, I'm not going there.
It's not going to happen, but could you imagine?
Should they make a trade for a tight end?
Why wouldn't
if you're
you?
evaluating everything and you're win now, what else is there? Was it just a quarterback benching? Was that it? And you felt like Monday that was the safe phrase to use because it, kind of covered all bases there? That's another.
It's probably one of my bigger questions. You're not benching Jonathan Taylor. Your wide receivers feel like your wide receivers. I don't know where you would go. There's a guy sitting on the bench, that's just sitting there. I mean, they've rotated so many different tight ends. I mean, maybe 1 or 2 guys kind of emerges there, but still, they're just very little parts of the offense. So I'm with you. In offensive line, you're not moving those guys around. Left tackle, obviously, is going to be different on Sunday. So We'll see again coverage on Sunday beginning at 5:30. Reminder coming up tonight as well, Pacers and Pelicans, 8 o'clock tip-off, 7:30 pregame coverage right here on The Fan. On the other side, the great Greg Rakestraw, all the high school football, plus how did the Colts get the win on Sunday? We'll talk with Greg next. We'll do it. It's a Football Friday, 8 o'clock hour, around the corner right here on The Fan.
your options.
Indianapolis
T
tonight?
Swift or Rakestraw.
Okay. I'll go with Rakestraw.
Maybe Pacers, but
okay. Denary, yeah.
Again, last Friday night, once the Pacers game got ugly, Rakestraw was the last voice I heard until I rested my head on the pillow.
Rakestraw's a different.
What a great way to end a Friday night.
It really
Rakestraw's
is.
a different eras tour because he would go through the high school eras.
Oh, look at that. Mark Dykton, very good there.
I like that.
The northeast side of Indianapolis for Greg Rakestraw tonight, LN and LC. We will get to that in a second. Rake, I actually wanted to start with a topic we were just chatting about. You were inside of the Colts locker room with myself yesterday. Your general impression of how players have reacted to the Anthony Richardson benching is what?
I think most guys have kind of towed the company line. I respect the heck out of the honesty of Ryan Kelly yesterday when he quickly said, yep, I've had 12 different quarterbacks in my now 9 seasons with the Indianapolis Colts. And you could, he was honest about it. Obviously, it's frustrating. I kept thinking, imagine having the career of Jeff Saturday where you didn't have a different quarterback until your last season with the team. But for 10 years, a quarterback. And for Ryan Kelly, it's 12. So I think most guys understand it. And again, things are so fleeting and things are so temporary in the National Football League. If you look at a player and go, hey, listen, we're making this move because we think we have a better chance of winning this Sunday, I think most guys nod and say, yep, and let's go. I would generally think that is the general consensus of the guys in the locker room.
Greg Rakestraw joins us here, Payless Liquors Hotline. We'll get to college football, and then obviously tonight, this weekend, big night of high school football as well. Listen, I assume you were surprised. Do you think they made the right decision ultimately?
Again, that'll be proven out not just this year, but in future years, frankly. But to win right now, yes. Joe Flacco right now is the better quarterback. Do you have a team that can be a playoff team with Joe Flacco as your quarterback? Yes, you do. So I understand it. I get it. And the same mistakes that Anthony made, say, in the preseason game against the Bengals, that was almost the exact same throw that he made at the end of the first half against the Texans last week. And obviously this one has, more huge repercussions. I know a lot of the chatter this week, and I was thinking there too, the first couple of series, I'm like, well, those are either drops or great plays made by defensive backs. He's playing better than the numbers indicate.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you can't explain away 10 of 32. Even if there were drops, even if there were great plays made by defensive backs, all right, let's double that. Let's say he was 20 of 32. That's okay. That's not great. Again, the typical norm is about 65% completion percentage in the National Football League. He was literally half of that in the game on Sunday. And yes, there are things that he does that others cannot do. Even the play that led to the now infamous tap-out moment, there's no other quarterback that avoids that sack in the first place to get in that. I get that, but I understand the desire of everybody involved to win right now. When you have not won a playoff game in 6 years, when you have not won the AFC South in 10 years, and I know you drafted a project quarterback last year. I get it. But above all, win. And I think the feeling is if you make a quarterback switch, you have a chance to be a playoff team this year. And when you haven't done that in 4 years, I get the motivation to make the change ASAP.
He is Greg Rakestraw, post-game host. It'll be the wee hours of Monday morning inside of this building coming up here as the Colts post-game show Sunday Night Football, Colts and Vikings in Week 9. Rake, 1.5 snaps. You going over or under for Anthony Richardson on Sunday night?
I would go under. Yes, I think there is a package in which you could use Anthony and keep him involved in the game plan. Again, the Taysom Hill, which is not what you want to do long-term, but short-term, I'm not against it, but I don't think that's the mindset of this team. I think it is, all right, we have made this move, and in the near future, it's now Indianapolis Colts, Joe Flacco's version.
Last one, kind of Colts related, AR related for me. Go back to Monday, Shane Steichen.
Seriously, I get nothing. I get no sold on that Taylor Swift reference. I get nothing on that at all.
I think
really?
we
Say
we
that
both
again,
missed
Rake. It went right over my head.
Yeah.
I said it was Indianapolis Colts, Joe Flacco's version.
Kevin's still confused.
I got it.
For some reason, she put Taylor's version for a bunch of her songs. I have no freaking idea why, but I'm just proud at least the 47-year-old guy got that reference. Okay, good. Moving on. Sorry to completely bog down the show. My bad.
No, you're better than
Someone
us.
had all of her music or whatever, and she wanted to make sure it was her music, and that's why she did Taylor's version. I don't know. If my wife's listening, she can explain it all to me, or she can text me on that. Okay, evaluate everything. That was the phrase Shane Steichen used Monday. Did evaluate everything just mean bench the quarterback, or is there more?
I'm not sure what else you're gonna look at doing. I mean, I'm not sure what other positional changes you're gonna make, and I think, frankly, part of this too is that this team is as healthy as they have been since the beginning of the season. You know, obviously with some of the players that were missing, this group was not at full song. Well, now you're kind of to that point. Now, obviously, it doesn't look good for Bernard Ryman in terms of playing on Sunday night, and that leads to a completely different conversation against the Brian Flores defense. But given the other pieces that you've got back, I think you can now make, frankly, a more fair evaluation of the quarterback position because all the weapons, and I think largely this team defensively is as good as it's going to be going forward.
Greg Rakestraw with us here, Payless Liquors Hotline. Rake, do you have a favorite T Swift song? Since you seem to know more about her than me and Kevin Bowen, go ahead.
I do not literally because this is the way play-by-play guys' minds work. I've got the Indy 11 game coming up on Sunday, and I have the traditional goal call, which I have modified under the ruse of some form of neutrality when I call games. Thanks, USL Championship. Where it used to be, I would just scream at the top of my lungs, "Cue the smoke." Now I have the modified version. Greg's version, I suppose. It's time to cue the smoke in Indianapolis. Try to back that down a little bit. So I've been thinking about do I start to work in Taylor Swift song lyrics in goal calls on Sunday because of the show?
Like that.
You got to.
And all I can I'll come up with is we're never ever getting back together. So I'm trying to figure out a way to work that into the course of the broadcast. So I would say,
I like it.
as opposed to Office Space where they celebrate the entire catalog, I don't know enough of the entire catalog.
Understandable. Listen, if you do that and you work if you work in just in natural play and goal calls, end of the game, start of the game, and you work in some Taylor Swift, that's going to go viral. You know that. Like you're going to get some hits and some likes and some retweets. So,
Andy, did you see the end of last week's football game? I'm viral already.
Okay.
I'm good.
Well, I want to get to that. Brebuff and Danville, you were on the call.
Brad Bowen's not happy. Danville grad, right? He ain't happy.
And Brad Bowen's not happy. So tell the people that don't know what happened in that game, a crazy game, and then obviously the end of the game, the IHSAA involved and everything else. What is going on? What went on and what has went on this week with this entire controversy?
I'm not sure you have enough time in the show to recap all of it. I'll try to give you the fast-forwarded version. It's 35-14 to start the fourth quarter. Danville scores 22 unanswered points. They went for 2 on their last touchdown and got it, 36-35. Pick 6 for Danville with approximately 15 seconds left to go in the game to make it 43-35. Kickoff down on the 20 or so yard line, one play to get to the 40. Hook and lateral play, Brebuff scores. The quarterback, Maverick Geske, runs at the last 35 yards. They get a 2. They tie it at 43. First possession of overtime, Danville scores, go for 2, doesn't get it. 4th and goal, 7-yard line. Brebuff, quarterback and Geske is about at the line of scrimmage, realizes I can't run the ball and get it in. I can't take a sack, game is over. And then as he's being tackled, drops the ball. In the ensuing confusion, some of the Danville players come off of the bench. Do they affect the play? No. They're well behind the play. Offensive line picks it up. He's tackled. Then a whistle comes in. You think the game is over. As some handshakes start, officials get together and throw a flag for illegal participation or legal substitution. Brebuff gets another chance. 4th and goal, 3-yard line, scores, kicks extra point, wins game 50-49. I went back and ran a stopwatch on time from because, as it gets told, like the length of time continues to grow in the conversation. I think it was 1:49 from the end of the play until the flag was actually dropped after the discussion.
Greg, that was going to be my question, because some of the reports have made it sound like this went 5-6 minutes. The teams were leaving the field. They went through the entire handshake line and everything else. So that's not the case. It was under 2 minutes.
I'm pretty sure somebody saw Ferris pass out of 31 flavors last night in one of the stories that I've heard about this. It was 1:49. Let me say this: that flag should not have been thrown. Period. End of sentence. Because you throw that flag if, in somehow or fashion, those leaving the bench would have affected the play. That's when that flag gets tossed. You're penalizing kids for having a natural reaction to winning a massive game and for making this remarkable comeback and for surviving an all-time play that Buff pulled off just to get the game to the overtime. You're not there to decide the game in that fashion, to me, as the officials. So I have a big problem with the flag being thrown. And I frankly have friends on both sides. We at ISC do a lot of business with Danville. Ted Hampton, the AD at Brebeuf, is one of my favorite people. I love every time I have a chance to go do an event at Brebeuf Jesuit. So what I have told people all week long is this was a wonderful game with a garbage ending, and I hate the fact that game ended in the fashion in which it did.
Rake, I think that's so well said. First off, great work on the call. That was pure chaos. I mean, not just that play. I mean, the final minutes of regulation was wild. My brother was texting me. He's like, hey, it sounds like this Danville game's getting pretty crazy. And like I said, the Pacers were getting blown out. I'm like, I'm going to dial up Rake. So great work from you on that end. And yeah, you pretty much summed it up. If I could put it succinctly, Danville got royally screwed, and I would probably use another word than screwed. If I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that, but I'd probably use another word if I could there. So just a shame on that end. Ellen and LC for you. I guess just to put a bow tie on everything, Danville filed a complaint, right, with the IHSAA, and there's nothing that can be done, of course.
Correct. Officials' decisions are final in that scenario.
Yeah.
I can tell you this again. Like I said, I'm friends with the folks in Danville. I kind of knew their purpose of filing the appeal was to say, hey, we don't think we can get this overturned. We want to make sure kind of a precedent is set that stuff like this doesn't happen going forward. And I also, frankly, am great friends with Commissioner Paul Neidig. And I know Paul did not like the way that this scenario played out, and there will be some things done internally at the IHSAA on that moment going forward. And nobody feels good in this scenario. Let's put it that way.
Private schools, they just get everything when it comes to this stuff. Absolutely blasphemy. LNLC.
That sarcasm, folks, for those who don't get the joke from Kevin Bowen. Just want to make sure, in case that didn't translate, just want to make sure you did.
I thought you were going to go with a Taylor Swift reference. Thank you to
Same
Marty.
Guy who played for private school and state championship game. Just throwing it out just to make sure everybody is aware, yes.
Thank you on that. By the way, former roommate, Marty McGlynn points out Scooter Braun, the rights to Taylor's songs. So you are correct. She made her own versions to get the royalties on that. Thank you for that confirmation, Marty. LNLC rake tonight. LC springing the upset, or LN moving on to, I think they would take on my Irish if I read the bracket correctly.
That would be correct. Cathedral does have to play North Central, but the Panthers are 0-9, and they've already played, and Cathedral would be the heavy favorite in that game. If this were just, Team A and Team B, you'd say Lawrence North by 15 or 20 points. But it's not. It's Lawrence North and Lawrence Central. And that is one of 3 games across, the area where, I hate this cliche, but you throw out the record books. Ben Davis and Warren is like that. We saw that be an overtime game earlier this year. Fishers and HSE is like that. When these kids have played with or against each other for the better part of 10 years, and everybody knows everybody, anything can happen. I had this game in week number 1. Were it not for a couple of back-to-back fumbles and scores that took a 1-possession game to then do a 3-possession game, and Ellen just kind of played keep away with LC the rest of the game, maybe we're talking about a different season for Lawrence North, who was unbeaten and going into the postseason, for the first time in 35 years. So Again, just on records and stats, LN's a big favorite, but crazy stuff happens when these two teams get together. Hopefully a little less crazy than the game I had 7 days ago.
Rake, we'll end with this. It's a hypothetical. It might not happen, but it's shocking that I'm even thinking this is a possibility. What would a college football playoff matchup of IU and Notre Dame look like in terms of the state of Indiana and sporting events in the history, frankly, of sports?
It's so unfathomable, and because that was not a possibility, I mean, it was a mathematical possibility in the last 10 years, but even going into this year, the hope was, hey, let's hope Signetti wins 7 games. Let's hope they get to a bowl game. Well, pretty sure they're going to win at least 8. I think they're probably going to win 9. I actually think they're going to win 10 or 11. They got a chance to win 12 or more. But the fact that the line that immediately comes to my head is like Norman Dale towards the end of Hoosiers. It's like me and you going to the moon. You just wouldn't comprehend it or think about it. And so it would be something, and that is a ginormous understatement, saying that it would be something.
Like, trying to think, like, were IU and Purdue ever in the same region of an NCAA tournament bracket? I know they try to, obviously parse out, like, Big Ten team. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something along those lines of a local, whatever, Butler IU, Butler Purdue in the NCAA tournament. It just seems like it's something so far-fetched to anything we have experienced from a state standpoint.
I know I'm like, giving an addict his fix. I'm going to make a Louisville reference just for Andy, okay? The thing that restarted the U of L UK rivalry in all sports was those two schools playing in the Elite Eight in Knoxville, Tennessee, in the 1983 NCAA tournament, Louisville beating Kentucky in overtime. For the dream game back then, because they hadn't played in like 25 years, that would be potentially this version of it. But again, those two schools always, had such hatred for each other, then wouldn't play each other. I mean, there's not been hatred between Indiana and Notre Dame football because they've not lived in the same orbit. Indiana opened the season at Notre Dame like in 92 or 93. And that was a big deal because it was everybody's favorite basketball team playing everybody's favorite football team, 30-something years ago. There's just no history there.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be huge, but there's no expectation or no comp because we've never thought about it before.
Yeah, that's a great point. Ray, thank you for the time. I know we threw a lot at you. We appreciate it. LNLC tonight, ISC for Greg Rakestraw. And again, in this building, late night coming up Sunday into Monday morning. Wonderful Taylor Swift references, Ray. Tremendous.
I do look forward to us getting back together 7 days from now. Thank you, gentlemen.
He has to do it.
You knew he was going to have one more.
I knew he has to do it during the Indy 11 game. Dude, he has to.
It's a must.
Yeah, he will go viral. There'll be hits everywhere. There'll be likes and retweets. He will be, I don't know, Scott Van Pelt will do a segment on one of the nightly sports centers or something like that. Speaking of Notre Dame and Indiana, now this is not perfect. I want to be clear. This is not perfect. But, the Sagarin ratings, they're still doing those for college football. Yeah. Okay, Jeff Sagarin, I think he's an Indiana guy, is he not?
Uh-huh.
So the Sagarin ratings, I don't think they exist anymore in college basketball, but they do on football, and it's just a predictor. He gives a number to a team. What do you think if the game was in South Bend, the game was at Notre Dame, okay? You go and you touchdown, Jesus. What do you think that spread is?
At Notre Dame?
Yeah, and again, this is via Sagarin ratings, which is usually pretty close to the spread.
3.5, 4.5?
See, he has it with his numbers. It'd be up to close to 11.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a lot of points. Notre Dame's getting the computers love Notre Dame.
Yeah, but Notre Dame's pathetic fan base. That place would be half cream and crimson. That's how it always is with those Notre Dame home games. Visiting fans just infiltrate.
Well, they want to go there. They haven't been there.
They want to experience. They want to go to the Grotto. They want to go see Touchdown Jesus, et cetera, et cetera.
Everything else. I mean, Indiana fans would have to change.
What would it be in Bloomington?
They'd have to change up their sweatshirts a little bit. Well, I mean, so the number is Notre Dame is actually number 6 in the Sagrins, so they have a number of 90, like 90 and a half. I don't want to confuse people too much. Indiana has a number of 82. They would get about 3 3 and change for being at home, so it'd be closer to about a touchdown, something around 6-7 points. If it were in Bloomington with the added 3 points, it's 10.5 or so if it's on the road for Indiana in South Bend.
Yeah, Tim brings up Indiana-Purdue in the 1980 NIT final, and I get that the NIT used to mean something obviously different than it means now, but Rick probably makes a better point of, like, we haven't had the venom of Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah, that's the point.
And I know you joke, but you're really serious of, like, there's a lot of closets that have a lot of cream and crimson and a lot of blue and gold.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of Indiana basketball fans and Notre Dame football fans. Yeah, I'm not kidding.
Unquestionably.
Yeah.
Tony Dungy in 8 minutes. Before that, let's get to a morning checkdown.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Marian University Football, pursuing another NAIA championship this season. Don't miss the on-campus action at Ascension St. Vincent Field. Visit NUKnights.com for tickets.
All right, obviously, we're going to start with the Colts in action. It's Sunday night football. Our coverage here on the Fan pregame beginning at 5:30. Heard Greg Rakestraw. He'll be on wee hours of the morning, 1 a.m. to 2:30 a.m. there. So it's Colts and Vikings. Joe Flacco gets the start on Sunday. Here's Flacco. This is from 2 days ago now. Here's Flacco and what he's going to bring to the team Sunday Night Football.
I've been doing this for a long time. I'm just going to go out there and play my game and do the best I can to, elevate everybody and give them confidence and just do my thing like I have. I've already played a couple games this year, so I think everybody knows what to expect, and we can just roll right into it.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. He's already played some this season. He was coming in relief. He started a game, games. So obviously they know Joe Flacco. That one currently a 5-point spread. Minnesota favored. Again, 5:30 hour coverage on Sunday.
And again, looking like a rookie left tackle, Matt Gonzalez out of Pittsburgh for Joe Flacco coming up. We'll see about Kwity Paye. He was limited yesterday with a hamstring injury. All right, tonight down on Bourbon Street, it'll be the Pacers and the Pelicans. The Pelicans are very banged up in this one. The Pacers do have a couple guys questionable on the injury report. That would be Miles Turner. That would be Andrew Nembhard. But the Pelicans will be without DeJounte Murray, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, C.J. McCollum. Those are very good and notable players for New Orleans. So that's why Indiana is favored in this one. Did you see the tip time for the Pacers on Monday, by the way? They're in Dallas.
I did not. No, I knew they were in Dallas.
Will you double check this, Mark?
Okay,
maybe?
I'm looking at it right now.
9:45.
yeah, I'm looking at it. It's
so
9:45.
Dallas is on Central Time, right?
Right. So it's 8:45. That's late for Central, right? What are we missing?
Is that ESPN? 9:45.
It's not.
Is there something national?
No, I don't see anything. No.
Why? 9:45 Eastern, 8:45 Central.
I have no idea. I don't know. It's a great question. I didn't even see that.
So
why would that be the case?
See if we need to adjust Rick Carlisle at all coming up Tuesday. Only other stuff on my end, getting college football. Curtis Rourke will start. Kirk Cignetti said that on our airwaves last night. That over a touchdown favorite, right, at Michigan State for Indiana?
Yes. It's, I believe, 8, if I'm not mistaken. It's at 8. Yep. It's at 8. So that over-under 52.5, may like that as well. Coming up next, no tease needed for this one. The great Tony Dungy. He joins us next here. Football Friday on the Fan.
Friday, and no one better to have on than our next guest. You will see him leading right into the Colts back on Sunday Night Football for the first time in over a year. He is the Hall of Famer and the man that helped hoist the trophy here in the 2006 season. The one, the only Tony Dungy joins us now. Coach, good morning to you. Always great to hear your voice. How are you?
Hey, good morning, guys. I'm very excited. When I got the news that we were flexing to this game, obviously it brings back great memories for me. Have some great relationships on both sides, so I'm fired up and looking forward to Sunday night.
Now, when the flex happened, Coach, it was probably more of an Anthony Richardson thought. Now it is a Joe Flacco. Just generally, what have you thought of the Colts season so far and now this recent change here at quarterback?
Well, it's been a little bit up and down, and the funny thing about it, in every game, one-score games coming down to the fourth quarter, making a play here or there, and this could be we could be sitting at 6-2, we could be sitting at 2-6, and it's a play here, a play there. That's how it is. Anthony is a talented guy, and I heard some of the promos leading up to this. This is not the end of his career. This is a moment in time. He's going to be fine, but I do think this is a good move at this time, especially going against this team. If you were contemplating this move, going against the Minnesota defense is a time to have Joe Flacco in the lineup.
The great Tony Dungy with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Coach, I know you've had to make a lot of difficult decisions being a head coach for so many years in the NFL. Shane Steichen had to make one this week, and he did. I know you're not in this particular locker room, but how do you think you would have handled a struggling young quarterback and a guy like Joe Flacco who can go out and win you some football games?
Well, you're trying to win games, and you're trying to gauge things and trying to figure out what gives you the best opportunity to do it. We saw that. We were actually in Pittsburgh 3 weeks ago, and Mike Tomlin had the same decision. I've got this exciting young quarterback. They were 4-2 at the time. But he said, I've watched practice, and I see things that could be done a little bit different. This is no knock on Justin Fields. I think Russell Wilson is going to energize us. They did that. They've won 2 straight now, and that was controversial. I was in Pittsburgh, and people were saying, how can we go away from this quarterback? He's done really well. He's done this well. But the coach sees things and sees things in practice. I actually had this one time for me. It was 1999 season, early on in my career in Tampa. We had Trent Dilfer as our starting quarterback. He was up and down a little bit, struggled. I took him out and put Eric Zier in. Eric played a couple of games, and then he got hurt, and we went back to Trent, and we got on a winning streak. So, things happen, and you have to, as a coach, say, what is going to be the best for us? How can we win games, and what does our locker room believe in? And I think that's where Coach Steichen is right now.
Again, he is obviously, you know that voice quite well. He is Tony Dungy. You'll see him coming up Sunday Night Football on site there with Jack Collinsworth, Rodney Harrison, before Mike Tirico, Chris Collinsworth, and Melissa Stark take over Colts and Vikings Sunday Night Football here in Week 9. Coach, obviously so much of what transpired Sunday for Anthony Richardson and the Colts was on the play that he asked out, that he tapped out on. What did you think of that move, and would that have had any influence on your decision whether to start or bench him?
No, we were watching that on TV, and I thought he was hurt at the time. Seeing the press conference afterwards, he's saying, well, I was really gassed, and I thought Joe Flacco would give us a better chance on that next play. As a young guy, I can understand that. That's not what you want from your quarterback, but that's not a big deal. You learn and grow through that, and, you would handle that, hey, Anthony, if you're tired, you got to suck it up. You got to gut it out and let's go. But I don't think that is really what's leading into this. You look at the completion percentage. You look at the plays that are there that Shane thinks Joe would make, and that's the difference. And that's what you base the decision on. Can we get these plays going? And as I said, this game coming up, I think it's going to be Jonathan Taylor in the running game and then making quick, accurate throws against the Minnesota Blitz. And we saw a veteran quarterback last week in Matthew Stafford do that really well. Jared Goff did that the week before for Detroit. Run the ball, play action passes, throw accurately, get rid of the ball quick, don't get stymied by the blitz. And I think Joe Flacco has a great chance to do that this Sunday.
Yeah, you answered some of that there, and the great Tony Dungy with us on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Again, our coverage on Sunday beginning 5:30, and Tony and company will be there on the NBC television call. How do the Colts get the win? I mean, I know you have the numbers, but, there's games, Coach, where the Vikings are blitzing 60% of the time, right? And the left tackle is going to be a rookie for the Colts. How do they go in there? They run the football. How do they get the win on Sunday?
You do have to handle the blitz. You've got to negate it. And the best way to negate it is stay out of obvious passing situations. So to me, Jonathan is the key. He's got to set the tone, just like Kyron Williams did last week for the Rams, just like Montgomery and Gibbs did for the Lions. If you run the ball and now you're in 2nd and 5 and 2nd and 2s, now you can throw when you want to against base defenses. If you throw incomplete on 1st down, you get to 2nd and 10. Now they're dialing up those blitzes, 3rd and 8. I can take some chances on defense. So to me, the running game is the key. And I think defensively the same way. They've got to stop the run. The Colts will heat up some things defensively, but they can't let Aaron Jones get going and dictate the pace of the game.
He's a Hall of Famer. He's a Super Bowl winning coach. He is Tony Dungy, and he's with us here on this Friday morning. Again, Colts Sunday Night Football coming up in Minneapolis here, and obviously Tony has some rich ties to that state in that area as well. Coach, when you think back on 2006, is the memory more AFC title game or is it Super Bowl?
The AFC title game was a big game for us because that was getting over the hump, and we hadn't done it against New England, and everybody, was pointing to that game. We finally had them at home, so you feel good. And then we get down 21-3, and it was like, are you kidding me? We're not playing our game. But to come back and win that game, and I've had so many Colts fans over the years since then, that was my favorite game. I remember where I was and go through everything that happened. And I have to remind them, I said, okay, that's your favorite game. You realize we were only ahead for 1 minute in that whole game. But it was the 1 minute that counted. And that's the story. And that's the thing for, I think, this Colts team. It's how you finish, where things go from here. Yeah, we've had some ups and downs. We're 4-4, but you can finish this thing off.
Tony Dungy with us. Coach, I know you sent a video, and congratulations to Dallas Clark a couple weeks ago, and, his number went up in the rafters, and that's awesome. I'm 40, so I guess I'm starting to feel this way about some things in my life, even though that's not that old. But as you get older, more pride, seeing guys that you coach, whether they're in the Hall of Fame or what we saw here in Indianapolis a couple weeks ago, the more pride you get seeing all those former players get recognized and all those accomplishments continue to be recognized by fan bases, including this one?
Yeah, that is so gratifying. I was disappointed I wasn't able to be there for Dallas's induction. Peyton Manning sent me a picture with all the guys there around Dallas. Last year at the Hall of Fame, we probably had 60 guys come back for Dwight Freeney and welcome him into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And when you see that camaraderie, that togetherness, and it just brings back such great memories of that team. I think of the 2006 team, and I tell people all the time, that wasn't our most talented team. 05, 04, we had some really, really great teams. We hadn't gotten hit by the salary cap yet. But that 06 team was so close and so together and so unified that we were able to go through some tough times together, and Dallas Clark was a huge part of that.
Coach, we'll end with this. Just simply, how's life for Tony Dungy? Obviously, we see you on Sunday nights, but how's the family? How are the children? And what are you up to when we're not seeing you on Sunday nights?
Well, we're doing well. I'm keeping up with 12 kids now. We've got some adopted kids here at home, and so we have Thursday night middle school football, Friday night varsity football, Saturday for Butler home games. I'm up at Butler. Our son Justin is a freshman there and loving life with the Bulldogs. So I get to Indianapolis a little bit more than usual, but it's hectic. I'm watching a game on Friday night, flying to Indy on Saturday, which that's my routine this weekend, tonight and tomorrow, and then I'll fly out to the Colts Vikings game. So it's hectic but fun.
Well, I will see you there. I'm actually going to be out of the Butler Bowl tomorrow, so looking
Oh,
forward
I'll
to
see
that.
you. We'll
There you
definitely
go.
look for you.
Bulldogs and Stetson coming up tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Well, Coach, I can't thank you enough. We appreciate the time on this Football Friday. Safe travels this weekend, and certainly we'll be watching on Sunday.
All right. Thanks, guys. Looking forward to it. We're going to have a great game Sunday night. I think it's going to be a nail-biter right down to the wire like most of the Colts games have been.
That is the Hall of Famer right there, the one, the only, Tony Dungy on the Payless Liquors hotline. Totally forgot that his son was a freshman at Butler. He sent out some pictures of moving him in and the old dorm life there for one of Tony's kids. So
Carrying in bags of clothes or whatever.
Right,
Yeah.
waiting for the elevator, small talk with parents, nothing like it, right?
Small talk with Tony Dungy in the elevator. Great stuff. We'll have that up on the podcast center, 1075thefan.com. I mean, obviously, what Tony means to the Colts franchise and what he means to this area cannot go, untalked about. He's one of the GOATs.
Well, that is without a doubt. And he ended right there with this game. And it's kind of how I let off the show, Andy. I'm like, oh, bleep, we do have a football game
And it's
here.
a big game with the Texans losing last night. It's a big one.
A big one. We haven't talked a whole lot about it. We'll give our predictions on the other side. And all these one-possession games, will this continue? Life with Joe Flacco. Minnesota, they're kind of really might be a little bit too aggressive, but they have lost 2 in a row, and they're in a loaded division where, if you start losing to teams outside of your division, it could add up in a hurry. So I'm very curious because I would think I speak for all three of us. I have no idea what any of you are going to do with this pick.
I don't
We haven't
either.
talked about the game.
Well, and also a lot of the analysis and numbers have changed because bettors respect Joe Flacco more than Anthony Richardson.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You could have got a really good number if Anthony Richardson was the quarterback. And honestly, it's going to change my score, I think, just a little bit. So you heard KB there. Our predictions, what do we think happens on Sunday Night Football? We'll do it next. It's a Football Friday right here, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
I think this is on my top 5 Taylor Swift song list.
My daughters love this song.
It might be my favorite.
I'm gonna sound terrible. You guys are gonna scold me. I don't think I've ever heard that song before.
It's on her new album. It's a brand new one.
Yeah, it is newer.
Okay.
I also like the one that Simone Biles performed to in the floor exercise of the Olympics.
When she was pregnant? Man, it's such an inside joke. I got fooled by the internet thinking Simone Biles was pregnant while she was at the Olympics.
That was a humble day.
Yeah.
To say the least on that
It's called Facebook. I'm old. I'm 40. I believe Facebook now, so I'm sorry.
By the way,
it's not a good moment.
My mom and Andy Sweeney, 2 people I need to tell. I don't believe everything.
Everybody's aunt and me, apparently.
Right, yeah. A discussion you'll have at Thanksgiving with your aunt here in a few weeks. By the way, shout out to Tony Dungy. Thanks for joining us. His wife, Lauren, I know had a huge impact here on the indie community. Her birthday today. I saw Tony just tweeted that out.
He should have said something. I had no idea.
He was waiting to get off with us before he sent out the tweet there. Head in the drafts.
I didn't think I saw
go.
it because I looked up his Twitter, just to see if anything was going on, and I tagged him in our post that we were going to have Tony on.
So
happy birthday.
Happy birthday to
Good for him.
Lauren. We haven't talked much about Sunday night. Again, this line has dwindled a bit. As Andy said, the bettors certainly are a little bit more optimistic about Joe Flacco. And a little background, I guess, Vikings-wise. Again, they started 5-0. Andy, they have lost their last 2.
Yep.
Now, they're very competitive against the Lions. The Rams with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua back in the lineup got the best of them last week on Thursday Night Football. They're coming off their mini-bye. They take away the football really, really well. They struggle in defending the pass. They struggle in protecting Sam Darnold. But again, a very exotic defense. They've gotten off to great starts. They had an injury to their defense, Blake Cashman, a few weeks ago that has really impacted things. Their defense has not been the same over the last couple of weeks, and they will be without their left tackle, Christian Darrisaw. A lot of people thought it would either be him or Kwity Paye for the Colts back in the 2021 draft. He's out for the year. They traded for Cam Robinson, so a new left tackle this week there. And it sounds like TJ Hawkinson, their Pro Bowl tight end, will make his 2024 debut coming off a torn ACL. Obviously, when you talk Vikings, you talk Justin Jefferson. And I would say Aaron Jones has shown a little fountain of youth at running back, a little Joe Mixon type of fountain of youth.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be my point. Aaron Jones has only hit 100 yards once this season. Now, he's been in the 90s 3 different times. He scored touchdowns in a couple of those games. He is a part of the passing game. If he had 30, 40 yards receiving, that would not be a surprise. But going back, they had the London game, but going back to that Rams game, and I know they lost, he had 21 touches in that game, 19 of those carries. The reason I bring that up is he is very much their running back. He was in for 92% of the snaps, was Aaron Jones. So when you're talking about dealing with Aaron Jones, I'm sorry. I see no way that, you tell me if I'm wrong here, I see no way that Aaron Jones isn't probably at 100 yards and a touchdown. I'd like to think that this run defense is going to be stout where they haven't been stout, but now, whether that means they win or lose, we shall see when we make our picks. But, I think Aaron Jones, if you have him, I think he's like a running back 2 this week. I could see him having 115 yards, a touchdown, and, 3 catches and 35 yards. So he's very much a big part of their offense. He had a couple years left, kind of tread on the tires, and he's had a nice season. That's the way I would put it. Not an all-pro season, not a Pro Bowl season, but he's had a nice season.
I'll start off.
Okay, well, go ahead.
I thought the spread was too big early in the week, and I know it has come down a bit. It kind of reminded me of last week with Houston. Like, that opened up at a touchdown. I was like, wait, what? I was like, no, Colts are going to cover that. They did. I don't know, though, if I feel the same just as the weeks played out. That Bernard Ryman, not having him in the lineup is a big, big deal.
Oh, it's a big injury.
You talk about indispensable Colts.
Oh, yeah.
I think I had him 1 on my list at the start of the season because, Andy, the guard depth, the center depth, I actually think is there. At tackle, first off, you get exposed a little bit more at tackle. Matt Gonzalez, the rookie, is likely to start. Again, he didn't even play late into his senior year at Pittsburgh. His last college start, he's played 1 snap in the NFL, and his college start, his last one was September of last season. Foot injury to end it. And really, he played more on the right side even in the preseason than he did on the left side, if you want to look at it from that standpoint. I think this is one of the best road environments in the entire NFL, so you throw that on top of it, and I think it's going to be difficult. I do think Minnesota has chinks in the armor, so it wouldn't shock me if this is, to Tony Dungy's point, a very competitive game late, but I will go with Minnesota 27, Indianapolis 19.
27-19. I'll go next. I've been back and forth, and what's funny about this is my opinion on this change with Joe Flacco. If Anthony Richardson's the quarterback, I'm sorry. I thought they were going to go there and get blown out, quite frankly. And that's not all AR's fault, but I just did not think that he was going to go on the road and play well in this atmosphere. What worries me in this game is, the defense has been able to stay in some games for the Colts by facing some pretty mediocre offenses the last several weeks. I mean, you think of the Miami Dolphins, they come to mind. Even Houston missing, Stephon Diggs half the game, Nico Collins, and everything going on there. And so, the Titans before then. So the defense the last 3 weeks, we've kind of been, are we being fooled a little bit by the defense? We haven't been beating them over the head because of that. I think this is one of those games where, you're going to stop Jefferson, you're going to stop Jones as well. If they make plays against Darnold, that seems to be the way that you're going to beat this team. So here's my, I'll get to it quickly, but here's my problem. I had this being more than a touch. I had this being a score very close to yours, basically 27-20. But by doing that, I am disrespecting the Colts keeping games close. I mean, the Colts are 6-0. What is it? Something like that. I mean, they're against the spread in the last 6. I mean, you trust them against the spread not to win games. So I will still trust them against the spread, but not to win games. A late score makes it close. I'll go 31-27 Vikings.
Ooh, a higher scoring affair.
Well, and the reason I have a lot of points is, they scored. I feel like they can score. I think we were talking with Hammer about this. They've been able to score like 20 points with a terrible passing offense. How does that change with Joe Flacco if he hits 3 or 4 passes that Anthony Richardson just wouldn't hit? Maybe that sets up an additional score. It keeps it closer. I'll go 31-27 Minnesota.
Again, that Jonathan Taylor element, that's something of like, okay, is that a negative with Flacco in the lineup versus, other areas, certainly efficient passing game you would look at as a positive. Mark Dykton to round it out. What do you got?
I think Brian Flores is going to dial up some exotic blitzes and looks. He would have done the same with Anthony Richardson, but I think he looks at Joe Flacco and says, that guy's a statue. He's not going to move as much. So if he brings that pressure, Joe Flacco is going to be running for his life as best as he can, and I don't think it's going to go very well for him. I don't like that we're all agreeing here, but I have the Vikings beating the Colts 30-21.
Well, some might counter and say I like that you're all agreeing because you 3 are idiots, and it'll be the Colts.
Will anyone at the station pick the Colts, or is it going to be a clean sweep? I have a feeling it's going to be a clean sweep.
No, I think somebody will.
You think Jake from Ireland will?
Yeah, probably.
He doesn't know Anthony Richardson's been benched yet.
Do you believe in Sunday Night Magic? The Colts have had it before. They've won some big games on Sunday Night Football.
I'd like to listen. It's interesting because what if the Colts...
it's still Sam Darnold at the end of the day.
It is, and this team, listen, you mentioned the last 2 weeks they've lost. I'll go back. Darnold, they did not play well in London against the Jets. Okay, and I know it's London and it's a travel.
Gilmore had that pick to ice the game.
Yeah, I understand it. So, I feel like the last 3-4 weeks it's been, hey, what is Minnesota? I think Minnesota will bounce back, and we all pick them to get the win, but there is something here. The interesting part of this is obvious. Do the Colts go up there, and if they look like complete crap, then we're going to come in here on Monday and say, well, this last week it hurt the locker room, and has Steichen lost the locker room? If they go and they're galvanized, that's the other side of this. Are they galvanized? Do they go up there and they're playing, football, maybe their best football of the season? It would be a great time to do so. Ryman being out is a huge deal, and I got to be honest, I don't know when we talk about score and spread. I don't know what to do with it. It's a massive injury, but I don't know. Is he worth a touchdown? Is he worth them not covering the spread because he's out? I don't know.
Now again,
I think Ryman being out and Hawkinson being in is going to be huge because I think Hawkinson will be a wrinkle that the Vikings throw at the Colts that they
Colts
can't
have
handle.
struggled with tight ends.
Yeah.
And now
That's a good point.
Minnesota is starting a new left tackle. Now, granted, this is a left tackle that's played a lot of football in the NFL, but he's new to the team. Arrived like Wednesday afternoon. So, cadence-wise, I know they're at home, but does that impact things at all? So, again, Sunday Night Football, Colts and Vikings here in Week 9. Matt Taylor, voice of the Colts, coming up in a few.
Yeah, 27-19. That's UKB. I'm 31-27, and Mark is 30-21.
Can I brag?
You can do whatever you want. Sure.
7-1 on my Colts picks this season.
I know. I
think Green Bay
feel good.
was
that the only one
for me on that end?
And I haven't seen it because I'm not on. I'm actually not on TikTok, if you can believe it. What did Max?
Impossible.
It is. What did Max pick? Has he made his pick
went
yet?
Colts. Yeah.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he went Colts.
So he went against the grain.
Yeah, I think Maddie needs to send me that video.
Oh, because you haven't posted it yet. Okay, well, there you go.
I don't have a TikTok, so Maddie has to
so
post
you don't
it
either. Okay.
To her TikTok.
Okay.
Actually, I did for 24 hours when it looked like Twitter was going to go down. Do you remember that?
I
was pacing around the house.
Yeah, what was
I had
the
to
other
get
one?
a cigarette.
Was it Threads?
Threads. I also did a Threads.
I still have a Threads.
Yeah. Are you posting?
No. Do not know the password. Have no idea. At this point, Russia could have hacked it. And they could be posting all sorts of nasty things under my name, and I just have to live with it.
Russia's stealing that medal from us in that one Olympics. That's how I feel about Buff stealing that win from Danville.
Damn right. I'm still not over it. The Bowen family's not over it.
Brad Bowen would like a word at the IHSA.
Our predictions will be up on the podcast center, 1075thefan.com. I'm sure Nick Cotton will go ahead and put those up as well. On the other side, how do they get the win? Play-by-play voice, your voice of the Colts, Matt Taylor. He joins us next.
Turned left on Out of the Woods this morning. Or maybe it was Anti-Hero.
You turned left?
Yeah.
On the street.
Are you not following?
Yeah, I'm laughing over here. I'm following
I always
it.
see the man.
We all work
boulevard.
downtown. Come on.
I know.
If it's not ringing with you two, it's not going to ring with anybody.
I need to check out these streets. Actually, I don't.
The one I've noticed the most is the one that I see. The only one I've seen really is the Man Boulevard right by the State Building. I see that one every single day. The other ones I keep missing.
These street names have changed,
They've changed
to Taylor Swift songs to get everybody up to date. Very similar to the month of May.
Those are getting stolen, by the way. There's no way those are lasting
when
through
you
the weekend.
Turn on, Santino Ferrucci Street in the month of May.
Those are getting snatched.
Next guest, he is voice of the Colts. He is Matt Taylor. Mate, are you a Swiftie? Are you a fan?
I'm trying to figure out what's a bigger deal. Seriously, the Beatles playing the fairgrounds in the late 60s or Taylor Swift invading Indianapolis all weekend? Like, from a pop culture standpoint, in the great history of our city, what's going to be a bigger deal? Because I think they're on the same level. I really do.
And you mean this in all seriousness, by the way?
I do.
Right.
Absolutely,
right.
I do.
Right.
I mean, this is a huge thing for the city, as they're expecting Super Bowl-esque traffic downtown Indianapolis this weekend. I mean, it's a big freaking deal. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, I was going to say, they estimated easily over $100 million of economic impact. And what did you say, KB? 82% of the ticket sales, 89% of the ticket sales were not from the state of Indiana. I mean, that's unbelievable.
How could that even be? Like, how does that even happen? I mean, I know it's the internet and anybody anywhere can get on, but how do people in this market get shut out to that degree where it's happening in our backyard?
Well, I how Ticketmaster works is probably for a different conversation, a different day. And Mark, maybe you can look this up, but where else has she been in America? I know she's coming from New Orleans, right? On this tour, where were the other stops? And I bring that up to say, like, from an NBA standpoint, I think so many times you see visiting fans kind of infiltrate Gainbridge Fieldhouse because if you are a fan of Steph Curry and you live in Cincinnati, Louisville, or Cincinnati, your closest NBA arena is Indy. So I don't know. Has Taylor Swift been to Chicago on this tour?
She has? Soldier Field, yeah.
She been to, like, I don't know, Cincinnati. There haven't been a ton of American stops, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, this is
she was in Cincinnati last summer. Is this the same tour as that, or is that different?
Yeah, this is.
I mean, I know she's been playing shows nonstop, seemingly for like 3 straight years.
Yeah, this is like the second U.S. leg of the tour. But then she did the first set of the U.S., then she went international, then she came back, and then this is the last U.S. stop, and then it's
Canada. She goes to Canada.
8 or 9 dates are Canadian.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, Matt,
all I know is it's pretty cool. It's really, really cool.
Certainly. Voice of the Colts, Matt Taylor, is with us here. Greg Rakestraw, earlier in the show, promised us a soccer goal call that will have a Taylor Swift tie-in. Will we get something Sunday Night Football as you're in Minneapolis of, Joe Flacco, the Colts lover? Boy, that was terrible. Yeah.
Will Coach Venturi know what you're doing if you do it? That's another question.
The defense shuts out Minnesota. Blank space here by Gus Bradley's unit.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I can guarantee in life: death, taxes, and Rick Venturi not getting any Taylor Swift references I make on Sunday Night Football. I don't know anything about that. Maybe I need to have a playlist song title option up on my computer throughout the course of the game. But we did do something fun yesterday on our podcast. We talked about how the Colts can bounce back in the last 9 games of the season, and all of the answers had to have a Taylor Swift song title reference in them. So we did have a little bit of fun with that this week.
I like
that. Excellent. Let's start here, Matt Taylor. Joe Flacco under center Sunday night. Where does he help the offense the most? And then vice versa, where would be your biggest question mark with Flacco at QB versus life with Anthony Richardson?
Well, just overall consistency on offense is the biggest thing. Completion percentage, more singles, more doubles, more completions over the middle, more completions to Josh Downs, quite frankly. I mean, I know Josh Downs is really friendly with Anthony Richardson, and they have a really good relationship. And, that's Josh's guy and vice versa. So I know they're really close. But the stats actually show that Josh Downs should be more excited with Joe Flacco as his quarterback. He's got 23 catches in 3 games with Flacco at QB compared to just 8 catches with Richardson as his quarterback. So they do take more advantage of the slot. And, again, the middle of the field, the completion percentage is much better throughout the course of the game. I mean, the biggest thing, obviously, that you're going to miss is just the threat of the dynamic ability in the running game, how Anthony Richardson complements Jonathan Taylor and vice versa. And you're going to have a pretty immobile quarterback in the backfield against one of the highest pressure teams rate-wise in the NFL and the Minnesota Vikings on defense. And you also might have a rookie left tackle making his first start in the NFL with Matt Gonzalez there on the left side of that offensive line. So you have to factor that into the equation as well. So those are the pros and cons, obviously, with Joe Flacco at quarterback.
Yeah, just as a follow-up to that, it's difficult because some of the time that Joe Flacco has played this year, he didn't have Jonathan Taylor, right? Jonathan Taylor missed some time. Yeah, specifically, I think Flacco's going to be able to complete some passes and have much better completion percentage and everything else, obviously, than AR. But the running game is much more of a question, I think, with Flacco. You think they can get Jonathan Taylor going, knowing that you can't do too many RPOs with Joe Flacco like you could Anthony Richardson?
Well, you can do them. You just can't do them in the same way, right? You're gonna have 2 different series, if you will, in the RPO game. You're going to have different route concepts, to say the least, with Joe Flacco in the RPO game, but they still can be there. But there's no question that Jonathan Taylor has to have more of a traditional running style or running attack from a playbook standpoint going into this game. But with Joe Flacco at quarterback, the running game has been diverse this year. And by that, I mean different ways of running the ball and attacking defenses in the ground game with whams and powers and overs and counter trays. That was really good to see in the games that Joe Flacco was the quarterback, just the diversity within the running game in terms of the styles of runs that the Colts were calling. So they're going to have to throw everything at this defense. They're really good at stopping the run. They're not so good at slowing down the pass. And I would say, too, that, there's a lot of different components and different factors that have brought the Colts to this decision at this time of the year, making the switch at quarterback from Richardson to Flacco. Maybe one layer of it is just, hey, this is Sunday Night Football, and you're playing in a hostile environment against one of the more complicated and nuanced defenses in the NFL. But that defense has been gashed the last 2 weeks. They've got a really good point total allowed on the season, but in the last 2 games, their point total is 30.5 points against the Lions and the Rams. And 2 veteran quarterbacks gashed him in the passing game with Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford. So maybe that's a component to going to Joe Flacco in this game, or at least, moving to him as the quarterback for the rest of the season. We'll see how it goes, but at least that's maybe why they made that switch this week, playing this game in particular on the road against the Vikings defense that can be complicated.
Voice of the Colts, he is Matt Taylor. He's with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. And if I'm doing this correctly, Taylor's tidbits, or Mark, should I say, are we ready for it?
He doesn't get any Taylor Swift bumper music. We'd be kicked off the air.
Oh, we'd be literally obliterated.
Well, we couldn't podcast it, right, Mark?
We'd be done.
Yeah.
They'd
erase the podcast.
Whoa.
Taylor's tidbits time, Matt Taylor.
Yeah, the last thing I need on a Friday morning is to get phone calls from my lawyer, all right? So good call right there.
Mm-hmm. Very smart by Mark.
Yep. All right, let's talk about hot starts for Minnesota, okay? They have scored 72 points in the first quarter on the season. That's the most in the NFL by a wide margin, and they played 1 less game than most every other team. They've already had their bye. So their 72 total first quarter points and their 10.3 points per first quarter are the most in franchise history through 7 games and are tied for the most in the NFL since at least 2000. And that's a big reason why they've trailed for a little over just 54 minutes of game action on the season. That's the least amount of time among all teams NFL-wide. And the Vikings are the only team that's combined for less than 1 hour of time trailing through Week 8. So they dominate you in the first quarter. They get you behind the 8 ball. And that's how they're kind of strangling teams the rest of the game, is just get off to a blitzing fast start and then hit cruise control the rest of the way.
One thing, I don't know how much this applies to that stat necessarily, Matt, but you've been, obviously, to Minneapolis a couple times. I think this is one of the more underrated NFL environments out there. This might be the loudest environment the Colts play in all year.
I think it's definitely, top two, whatever you want to say. They still have to go to New England. But, yes, I mean, it's a very, very rough place to play. I can tell you, I mean, we even did a preseason game there a couple years ago, and it was deafening. It was a Saturday night. People were liquored up. Football was back. I mean, they love football up there, and they bring it. The PA system's incredibly loud. The Jumbotron presentation's really good. I agree with you. It's a really tough place to play, and the Colts are going to have to be on it to win this game.
Do you have another tidbit?
I want to talk about the rushing for the Vikings and why that matters, all right? Because Sam Darnold at quarterback, he's having a great year, back up with J.J. McCarthy. Justin Jefferson, obviously, we know what he can do at the wide receiver spot. But they do want to be run-oriented first. In fact, they have the fewest passing attempts in the NFL so far this year. And they want to run the offense through former Packers running back Aaron Jones. Jones has accounted for 30% of the Vikings' yardage on the season. He's one of three players responsible for at least 30% of his team's scrimmage yards on the season. Saquon Barkley can say that. So can Alvin Kamara. But the Vikings are 5-0 this year when they rush the ball more than their opponent. And they're also undefeated, 5-0 when they're afforded the ability to rush the ball at least 24 times. So 0-2 under 24 carries and back-to-back losses against the Lions and the Rams. A huge test for this Colts rushing defense that's, let's face it, it's been up and down, coming off a pretty decent performance last week, giving up only 96 to the Texans. That's a big barometer in this game. If the Colts can slow down the rushing ability of the Vikings, then they'll have a pretty decent chance to win.
It's pretty good.
Nate, when you look at their defense, one thing that stood out to me is, we talk so much about Brian Flores, the exotic nature. They're giving up a ton of passing yards, though. And that was kind of Jacksonville's issue, a month ago when Flacco really torched them.
No, 100%. That's a really disappointing part of that game. He scored 34 points with a quote-unquote backup quarterback in Jacksonville, and you still lost it. You still have nothing to show for it. There's not a whole lot of household names on this defense. I mean, they got Jonathan Grenard. They still have Harrison Smith. But it's just the system, that the sum of the parts are better than any of the individual units, if you will. And, again, Brian Flores is really, really complicated. He blitzes a lot, very, very aggressive. Again, I think if you're gonna ask yourself back in training camp, and I'll give Rick Venturi for saying this because he did say this back in August, if you're going to handpick one game to have Joe Flacco start, it might be this Vikings game, considering how just unique and unorthodox at times that unit can be on defense from the Vikings.
No, I think that's a pretty good point on that end. Again, Colts and Vikings coming up week 9. Joe Flacco, Sam Darnold, and I'm guessing with the Jets winning last night, that might increase the chances of that game staying on Sunday Night Football here coming up in 2 weeks. So we could get to the next 3 games on Sunday Night Football. Mayte, safe travels up there. Will you Mall of America it up? It's a long day on Sunday until kickoff.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do. Yeah, I'm not a big mall guy. I guess I can get like one of those massages in the middle of the mall, like one of those kiosks, You
could sit in a Brookstone chair.
Yeah, that's a good view. I just, painted a good picture there, didn't I?
Sir, you've been here for an hour and a half.
Yeah, I want to go check out just Minnesota. I'm not being funny here. Minnesota in the fall is gorgeous. I don't know if you guys have ever been up there in October, November, but it is beautiful. One final tidbit, if I could leave you with this, I might try to check out some waterfront property up there because, as we know, Minnesota known as the land of 10,000 lakes. All right, all but 4 of Minnesota's 87 counties contain at least one natural lake. Minnesota's lakes provide over 44,000 miles of shoreline. That's more than California, boys.
Wow.
How about that?
That's a stat. Matt Taylor, did you do a school project on the state of Minnesota back in the day? Like, how the hell did you know that? Was that in the Vikings game notes?
These are just things I don't know how I can't explain it. They're just things that are in my brain. But, yes, 44,000 miles of shoreline. That's more than California. And there's actually over 11,800 lakes in Minnesota that are at least 10 acres or more. So I know it's cold up there, but this time of year, man, It's absolutely with the trees and the leaves and everything. It is gorgeous.
Look at that.
I like that.
He's
the
ready,
foliage.
He's ready for a 9-inning game that turns into a 12-0 affair with all of this great information. Here, Mayte, help the kids at a great Halloween. As always, love our Friday chats, safe travels, and get some sleep in the wee hours of Sunday night.
You got it. Likewise, boys. Have a great weekend.
That is the voice of the Colts, Matt Taylor, on the Payless Liquors hotline. 2016 game, Colts at Vikings, mid-December. I'll never forget getting on the bus to head to the stadium, and it was -19.
Oh, I think you've said that. I think I remember you telling us that on the air before.
-19. Andrew Luck had I swear he wore a glove that game for some reason. I remember he had some injury situation. He just looked wild dressed. You know who also I think looks wild dressed is Garrett Wilson. He looks like a receiver from the 1970s.
Dude, he totally does. He really does.
Is it the sleeves?
It's the sleeves. Yeah, he's got a different swag look to him. I don't know if it's swag. I don't know if that's the right terminology, but
remember,
yeah, he does.
Luck was dressed oddly, and yet the Colts got really one of the bigger wins in the Chuck Pagano.
You
Ryan
mentioned
Grigson
going to
era.
the Mall of America. What are you? Come on, Mark. You a Camelot music guy? You a Walden Books guy? What do you miss from the malls back in yesteryear? I haven't been to a mall in a while.
Are you saying Circle Center does not have these things? Still?
I would imagine. I don't know. What do they have? I
can answer that question. Not much.
Yeah,
I don't know
about
what's
to
there
say
anymore.
not too much. Well, Bath and Body Works for Mark Dykton.
Oh, of
Mall
course.
of Americas.
I
Get
did.
a candle.
Some cucumber melons.
I did walk around Mall of America
Did you?
back then.
I've never been.
For that, so
I'd like to go.
I've been. It's fun.
Do they have like a roller coaster entertainment?
yeah,
like
there's
a
roller coaster.
like a big slide
Yeah.
or something
That
you
would
could
be-
go down?
Yep.
Can you imagine Rick Venturi, Matt Taylor getting their picture taken coming down the roller coaster?
I should ask Matt Taylor if he's a Prince fan. Go to Paisley Park. Check
Sure.
it out there.
Sure. Good
And get a
dabbling.
whiff of cereal because the General Mills breakfast factory is right next door.
You know Matt's not going to
General Mills is up
Matt's not going to do anything unless he wakes up early. He's going to be prepping for the game. They're going to get there hours and hours before the game. Yeah, come on. You know Matt's not going to go to the mall
Now,
on a
we
Sunday
have
afternoon.
a Germany game this week, but it's not early. Is that right?
Do we?
I think
yeah,
that's
I think so.
next weekend.
Oh, is it next weekend?
No, well, next weekend's early. Yeah, the reason I know that, it's Giants-Panthers at 9:30 in the
So
morning.
that's next weekend.
Yeah,
Okay, so no
they're-
Germany this week?
They're in Munich. I don't believe so.
Man,
No.
what a horrific game to send over there. Giants,
Yes.
Panthers?
I love every bit of it.
Oh, man.
I love every bit of it. You guys are gonna sit there.
9:30?
You're gonna 9:30. You're gonna eat your vegetables. This is a vegetable game, okay? It's not fun. It's not cake. It's not Reese's Pieces. It's not Reese's or Kit Kat or anything or Twix or Skittles from last night. Halloween candy. It's not any of that. It's Brussels sprouts. And you're going to sit there and you're going to enjoy 3-yard passes by Daniel Jones and Andy Dalton.
It's like lima beans with
carrots.
Zero flavor.
It's steamed
puke.
It's steamed carrots.
Yeah,
it's bad.
It's getting peeps for Halloween. Jolly Rancher sucker. Rosie Bowen in her basket last night.
Mm-hmm.
Very.
Sounds good.
Very underrated.
Yeah, I
we
kind
got
of
a couple
forgotten
of those
about
too.
it. Mark,
Yeah.
you brought up the candy apple
Mhm.
suckers
Yep.
yesterday.
I had 3 of those last
Love
night.
that, but
Yep.
I forgot that the Jolly Rancher dabbled in the suckers. And when I saw that, I
Oof.
thought, how quickly can I get
That's
her
good.
to bed?
And the other
Yeah.
one there's Starburst suckers too, and I was like,
Oh,
ooh.
yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I saw
we got a couple
those.
I don't know
of
if I've
last
come
night,
across
too.
one.
Yeah, it was like 7:35, and my stomach was already hurting. I woke up this morning thinking, I need an apple or a banana. Can we do a sound of the day real quick before I check down so I
Let's
can
do
get
it.
something Halloween off my
Let's
chest?
do it.
All right, let's
It's
do
the
it.
sound of the day.
Here we go.
Welcome on the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy.
All right, this is more just a setup of just a small little mini rant that I have. But Joe Burrow was asked about Halloween. By the way, did you see Macaulay Culkin?
I did.
Dress up
I
as
did.
it was kind of
Uh-huh.
creepy. Yeah, it's creepy. Not kind of creepy.
No.
It was creepy. But anyway.
Glad to see Macaulay's doing all right.
He is. So here's Joe Burrow, not much of a Halloween guy. Go ahead, Mark.
You a big Halloween guy or no?
No.
Why not?
I'm not into celebrating something just to celebrate it, but like what exactly, I don't know exactly what we're celebrating there. Just like dress up to dress up, I don't know.
You're not a big dress up guy?
I'm not a big dress up guy. I've always been like anti dress code, like if somebody tells me I gotta wear something, I don't want to wear that. That's just always how I've been. I don't know. I guess I'm a contrarian sometimes.
All right, that's good enough. And then later on, they're like, okay, kids are dressing up as you for Halloween. And he's like, that's pretty cool. So
somebody should say Macaulay Culkin dressed like you.
Is he anti-establishment, Mr. Burrow?
Well, I think so a little bit, but that's not what I care about. Or that here's what my problem is. And KB, you know this. Before LSU, and we'll get to LSU, where did he go to school?
The Ohio State.
Okay, he was a 5-star kid. He went to
Was he really?
I think so. I mean, he had to be, come on, to go to these play. Yeah, he was a 4 or 5-star kid. So he went to Ohio State. He was a big-time high school football player. He goes to Ohio State, and then he goes to LSU, and now he's a young guy with hundreds of millions of dollars. And my biggest problem is Joe Burrow's not a Halloween guy. Joe Burrow has, and what kind of parties, KB? You guys have been in college. What kind of parties do you think the quarterback for LSU and Ohio State is going to around Halloween time? We all know what those parties look like.
Yeah, the Halloween parties on a college campus makes you not want to have a daughter.
Yeah, that's the best way to
Am
put
I
it.
wrong? Mark, can you speak up?
No, that's accurate.
I don't think Mark wants to. Yes, but I mean, my point is, he's not a Halloween guy. Joe Burrow is taking for granted that for years upon years, Burrow has been able to go to the sexy Halloween party. Yeah, I'm a 40-year-old guy that will never go to one of those ever again and hasn't been to one in 2 decades. And Joe Burrow's in the prime of his life, hundreds of millions of dollars at Ohio State, probably, at LSU, beautiful SEC school, and now in the NFL with hundreds of millions of dollars. He is taking for granted that he gets to go and have fun. We're trying to live through men like Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow is casting aside Halloween when he gets to go to the great parties, to the sexy parties, and that bothered me. And I needed to say that. I needed to get that off my chest. Remember Johnny Manziel?
Well, Anthony Richardson seemed to be taking part up in trees last night.
Was he okay?
Scaring kids, handing out candy. I mean, he was very all in on Halloween.
So he was more of the family man.
So Richardson greater than Burrow, if you want to go on that end.
If you want to go on that end,
right?
I didn't see that. So he was he dressed up or was he just Anthony Richardson wearing sweatpants climbing a tree?
He was doing it all last night. A man of Halloween, unlike Joseph Burrow there. Mark Dyke, let's check it down.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Marion University Football, pursuing another NAIA championship this season. Don't miss the on-campus action at Ascension St. Vincent Field. Visit NUKnights.com for tickets.
I appreciate you guys letting me get that off my chest. That bothered me. Like, come on, Joe Burrow. I'm trying to like you. What are we doing here? Anyway, all right, so it's Colts and Vikings coming up on Sunday. Our coverage, you heard Matt Taylor there. Pregame coverage beginning at 9:30. We haven't played this one. This is actually from yesterday. Not many players meeting with the media yesterday. DeForest Buckner, one of those guys who did meet with the media yesterday. It's a little bit long, but he's talking about AR being benched, his advice, and basically everything else that's happened this week.
I mean, it's tough when it comes to situations like that. You know what I mean? And obviously, there's a lot of thinking that goes into it and discussion. Like, I let AR know that, besides, despite the situation, the guy's always got his back. You know what I'm saying? And we're always here, for him. And I just told him that, you got to use this moment as a growth experience and continue to develop as a quarterback and a leader. And also, I mean, just don't let this moment define him as a player, as a person. It's here for him to develop, and it's going to help him shape into the person he's meant to be.
Yeah, I thought some good words there from D-Buck. Again, currently 5.5. That's the spread as we head into Sunday night.
Minnesota's had some O-line issues. We'll see if Buckner can get after the quarterback here as he comes back in week 2. Quiddy Pay is questionable, or I should say missed half of yesterday's practice. He was limited with a hamstring injury, so we'll see how Quiddy responds to that as to close out the week. All right, Pacers tonight in New Orleans. 8 o'clock tip against the Pelicans. They are favored in this one by 3. Miles Turner, Andrew Nembhard questionable. Why are the Pacers favored? Well, the Pelicans have struggled here as of late, coming back from a West Coast trip, and they are without DeJounte Murray, C.J. McCollum, Trey Murphy, and Herb Jones. So some notable Pelicans not in the lineup. Pacers, Pelicans, and then in Dallas on Monday.
College football this weekend. Obviously, Notre Dame is on a bye, so KB get to rest easy on a Saturday. Well, you're going to Butler, right?
Butler Stetson.
Look at you. You and Tony Dungy. Indiana in action at Ohio State. At Michigan State, that one 3:30 on Peacock. And then, of course, Purdue, maybe their last chance to win a game all year, 12 o'clock on the Big Ten Network. They host Northwestern there.
Yeah,
what
high
a game.
School football coming up. Everybody underway now. Sectional season with the big classes joining the smaller classes. Thursday night football last night, C.J. Stroud got sacked, I think 37 times. Garrett Wilson made the catch of the year. And the Jets got a win over the Texans. And that's pretty much it. IU Marion, Pat Knight back inside of Assembly Hall tonight. Exhibition game, Big Ten Plus.
God, one thing we haven't talked about, Malachi Corley dropping the ball at the 1-yard line for the Jets last night. It's the dumbest play in sports. And I like him. He's a good player. Went to Western Kentucky. We talked about him draft-wise.
I know.
Second, third round.
I was intrigued by him until I saw the play last night.
Yeah, he hasn't got much playing time there. Jets have a lot of wide receivers. All right, coming up on the other side, a look around the other action in the NFL. Hardest game, easiest game, popcorn game. We'll get to that. Last segment, we'll have our pop quiz. It's a Freebie Friday. So still a lot to do. It's a Football Friday right here on The Fan.
about 10 minutes. 317-239-1070. Freebie Friday. So that means Jiffy Lube oil change we will give away. Mark Dighton, you gave away a 4-pack to the Indy 11 game already in our YouTube chat. Is that correct?
I'm awaiting the DMs from people, yeah. I said first one to DM me gets them.
Indy 11 match Sunday at 1 o'clock. How about a couple of more 4-packs? 317-239-1070. Want to go to the Indy 11 game coming up this weekend? We'll take fast fingers. We'll give away two of those 4-packs on the phone lines as well. So reward a little bit of both here. 317-239-1070. Our easiest, hardest, and popcorn NFL games of the week, and this slate stinks.
Why do you always say that? Come
this
on.
This slate stinks.
And didn't we say that last week, and there are 5 games that came down right to the end? Come
they can
on,
be
guys.
good games, but, I mean, none of, like...
On the surface, you're not
Come
like,
on
these
now.
are must watch. Like the 1 o'clock slate blows.
It's the NFL. This is our
No.
drug.
All
What
right,
else we got to do?
Let's start here then. Talk me into your popcorn game.
Okay. All right, hang on. Let me get my notes here. My popcorn game, and I hope, okay, here's why you might be right. If Jordan Love doesn't play, if Jordan Love does play, my popcorn game, it's the Lions on the road against the Packers, right? Come on, that's an awesome game. That's the 425 game. Now, it loses a little bit of steam if it's Malik Willis. I know I've been historically wrong, and I've been loud and arrogant and wrong about Malik Willis. He has revitalized his career there. He has revitalized his career there in Green Bay. But, this is a huge division game. Detroit's favored on the road. I don't know. I mean, I just, to me, this is the game. Like, this is the game of the entire day, Lions-Packers. I don't know where else you would even go. This is it. Let's go.
Jameis. Jameis, baby.
Is it before the game and after the game, or the game itself?
It might just be, 12:58 p.m. to
You're
hear
right.
the pregame speech
And
out
then-
of the tunnel.
And then 4 o'clock.
But Jameis against Harbaugh? Jameis against Herbert?
Well, this is on my list, but it's not here.
Okay.
It's a very interesting game, especially for the Colts.
If Bo Nix is real, then what about Sunday Night Football? I mean, Bo Nix against Lamar?
I know.
And again, we'll see about Lamar. He's missed practice so far this week. So I would say in a normal year, Tua at the Bills might do something for me, but those would be some of the popcorn games. My easiest game to pick, boy, I feel like a freaking idiot even saying this.
Okay.
Give me the Cowboys with 3 points at the Falcons.
So you like Dallas?
I like Dallas.
You're gonna
Dak called it a must-win.
Oh, did he? Did Dak Prescott call it a well?
And if
that
Dak calls
changes
it a
everything.
must-win, I say lay the mortgage on it.
I had a buddy who would say this is my hold my nose special. Is that your hold the nose? It stinks, but you got to roll with what you believe.
I've never heard that, but I think I like it. Yes, hold the nose. The good thing Mark's on the phone. He'd be so disgusted with me if he knew I was picking the Cowboys.
By the way,
this.
I think that's the highest over-under we have, 51.5. That's the highest over-under in the NFL this week.
I will take the Cowboys
points.
with the points. Your easiest game to pick.
Yeah, my easiest game, maybe I should give Tua another week to get over that concussion. But there's not anything I like about the Miami Dolphins this season. There is not a thing. If you go back to week 2, these two teams played between the Dolphins and Bills. This was in Miami, and Tua was an abject failure. He had 3 picks. He had 145 yards. 7 of the last 8 meetings, the Bills have not allowed a quarterback to go over 16 fantasy points. Of course, I'm talking about this from a fantasy perspective. Buffalo favored by 6 in that. I just think Buffalo's going to run the Miami Dolphins over. I really do. They'll be 7-2 rolling into here next week.
The hardest game to pick for me, and part of this is because I just want no part of viewing it.
Okay.
The Titans are favored by 3.5 over the Patriots.
Are you telling me you don't like to check into the toilet bowl game just a couple times on a Sunday afternoon?
But okay, right now, Andy Sweeney, if I said you can pay for Little Gas's college by betting on Will Levis and the Titans, is it even Levis or are we still Rudolph in it?
I think we're still Rudolphing it, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rudolph or Drake May in concussion protocol. So Rudolph or Brissett?
Oh, it's terrible. You know what I think of Brissett. I guess I would go New England, and I guess I would take the 3.5 and go with New England.
You like the road dog here and the Patriot? I mean,
it's
what?
nasty. No, it's a disgusting game.
Yeah, so part of it is probably disgusting more than anything,
disgusting.
but I also think it's difficult to pick. So that's my hardest game to pick.
Yeah, my hardest game to pick. You talked about it earlier. Do the Chargers go on the road and beat Jameis Winston? Like, I don't know. I mean, we're starting to talk about these games from the viewpoint, obviously, of the Colts. The Chargers would be 5-3 if they won this game. They'd be over 500 on the road. They'd be 3-2 on the road if they won this game. The Chargers also favored on the road. We saw Justin Herbert have a mini explosion last week, and I say that because it's been a very safe offense. It's been a very play defense and run the football-oriented defense. I think that will be the case. And then I think what you're saying is right about Jameis Winston. All this fun stuff before and after the game. KB, you could get 350 yards from Jameis Winston, 3 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Like, you could get him making 2 or 3 throws where, like, damn, he's a starter here in Cleveland, and then he throws 2 interceptions, they ran back for touchdowns, and Harbaugh wins. So I don't know what goes on in this game. I totally could see the Browns win. It's also interesting that a young Chargers team is actually favored on the road. It's a big game, though, for the Chargers. 4-3 in the season.
We do this with NFL focus, but you were talking a little bit offline. You say the metrics love Indiana to roll Michigan State.
They do. Let me look at it. The predictor.
And again, Curtis Rourke will start. Kurt Cignetti said that last night on Inside IU Football right here on these airways with Don Fisher.
They're favored by now. The spread is up to 8, so it's been back and forth. It's actually moved up to 8 since the Rourke news. They have an 84.1% chance to win according to ESPN's matchup predictor analytics. 84.1%.
Is this
pretty good?
9th game of the season?
Yes.
Michigan will be 10, bye week, Ohio State 11, Purdue 12. Is that right?
Yep, you got it.
The last time someone hasn't trailed through 9 weeks?
Do you know?
No. I have no idea. Has Army trailed yet? It was them and Army, right?
Yeah,
they were the last
I don't
two.
think Army has. I would not know where to even go with that. That might be them.
I mean, even these recent Georgia teams, South Carolina kicks an opening drive field goal and they're up 3-0.
Well, you think of the LSU team. We mentioned Joe Burrow last segment. We think of that. I mean, that was a super team, wasn't it? Think of all the great players, all the NFL guys that were on that team. Listen, I believe in Indiana. I think they're going to roll them. I think they're going to roll Michigan State.
I totally forgot, and it's now popping into my brain. Michigan State, coached by the Oregon State dude?
Yeah, is it Jonathan Brooks?
I was going to say Jonathan Smith.
Is it Jonathan? Who's Jonathan? I think Jonathan Brooks is the
Jonathan
running
Brooks
back.
Is like a third running back on some team.
He's an injured running back for the Carolina Panthers. I drafted him in my fantasy football league that took 9 days.
What happened to the dude they gave the $100 million contract to?
He got fired.
He had some.
Remember,
he had some off the field things, right?
Oh, yeah. What? Oh, I'm blanking on his name. What's his name?
Mel Tucker.
Mel Tucker. Oh yeah. I mean, Mel Tucker had the conversations, the inappropriate conversations.
Mm-hmm.
He got fired. I think they also wanted to get out from under him that contract, and he was good. I thought he was a good coach. There, was it 2 years he was there? But I mean, they gave him a $100 million contract.
I had to laugh a few times this week. Kurt Cignetti keeps on calling it a rivalry game. I'm like, did someone have to tell Kurt Cignetti that Michigan State and IU play for the old brass spittoon?
Is that what it is? The old spittoon?
I mean, can you imagine getting the IU job and being like, wait, Michigan State's a rival?
Right.
Why and how?
You ever seen a spittoon? You ever known anyone to have a spittoon in your life?
I'm sure I've watched Tom Allen run around the field with it at some point.
At some point.
But it's not really ringing a bell here.
At some
Pop
point.
quiz, by the way, upcoming Freebie Friday, 317-239-1070. Jiffy Lube oil change. I wonder if that question will be on the pop quiz.
I'm sure it will. You have any thoughts on Ohio State, Penn State before we take a break?
What's that line?
It's a high noon.
Ohio State's what?
Ohio State's favored on the road by a field goal.
Is Aller starting for Penn State?
I think that's going to be
banged up.
That's going to be very much a game time decision, isn't it? Probably. I mean, that's one reason they're favored by 3. If it came out tonight or tomorrow morning that he's starting, I would imagine that line would move at least 1.5 or so, would it not?
Now, if you're IU, who do you want? Do you want Ohio State because they're on your schedule and you want that game to be as marquee as possible?
Yeah. Well, okay, so you could look at one of two ways. If Ohio State loses here, they have 2 losses, and I think Ohio State would not make the college football playoff. And so if you're Indiana, that would eliminate someone. It would also denigrate just a little bit if you were to beat Ohio State, or it would maybe hurt you a little bit if Ohio State's not respected if you lost in a couple weeks to Ohio State. The flip side is if Ohio State wins and you're like, well, Ohio State and Oregon are going to get in the college football playoff anyway, And that third team in the Big Ten, if you don't think they can get 4, and that's a different conversation, then Penn State would have a loss on their resume, and you would not have a loss on your resume. That would be the other way to look at it. I would tend, boy, I don't know. I don't know which one I would pick. I got to be honest.
And I got to remind myself, we still have a Big Ten title game. And, Oregon, of course, right now, Oregon and Penn State, right? Would play in that game.
Right.
Because Ohio State has lost to Oregon. And the tiebreaker on that is...
we looked this up.
Is it college football playoff rankings?
I think so.
I thought it was that, and then I could have sworn someone said maybe it was Big Ten schedule strength.
We looked this up, and I just can't remember. We looked it up a month ago.
Is going to really struggle
Sure.
compared to those other teams. So all
Something
problems that, oh my gosh, here on November 1st are actually potentially real, which is just shocking to say.
Cannot believe it. So Freebie Friday on the pop quiz. Load them up. 317-239-1070. We do it next. Last segment here on this Friday.
speed? Can you handle the pressure? Sharpen your pencils. It's time for the Pop Quiz with KB and Andy. Brought to you by Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985.
I got a couple things here before the Pop Quiz. One, we've been in the Taylor Swift rabbit hole here on this Friday morning. Her American stops in 2024, unless I'm missing something, Miami, New Orleans, and here. So when you want to talk about why all these people from out of state are about to be here with these tickets, that's why.
Yeah, it's not like she's been to 13 different cities in the last month.
She was in Europe for a ton of stops, Singapore, Japan. So, yeah, and then we'll head to Canada after this here to, I guess, put a full bow tie on it. So that is probably why you're getting.
Do you know sometimes I know in sports you know this. I'm just kind of putting you on the spot. Do you know the bidding process or how they how Indy scored this? I mean, let's be honest. They scored this huge event that's happening this weekend.
I listened to the great Chris Gall. He was on, I think, IBJ's podcast, kind of explain it. First off, I think Indy was one of the earliest shows Taylor Swift ever did, like going back years. And so Taylor Swift, for what it's worth, I guess, has always felt like a bit of a connection here.
Okay.
Obviously, the NFL stadium
certainly
is a must. The indoor aspect of the NFL stadium is a must. And then I thought there was a connection with somebody high up at Lucas Oil Stadium as well.
Okay.
Like, somehow knew, I don't know, from a recording artist standpoint or what that connection was. Yeah, because
whatever works.
I mean, New Orleans and Indy don't jump off the page maybe as much as Miami seems obvious. Why not Chicago? Why not LA? Why not New York? Et cetera, on that end of it. Also, did you see the Xavier Worthy clip? Several people have tagged me in this morning. Did you see this?
No, I didn't. What
so
did
Xavier Worthy, the
say?
speedy Texas wideout.
Right.
Rick Venturi, in particular, was a huge fan of him in the draft process.
He loved him. I remember.
A.D. Mitchell's college teammate. He went to Kansas City. Kansas City, I think, traded up like 28, 29, somewhere around there.
They traded with Buffalo.
Right.
Because people were like, Buffalo, hey, what are you doing? Why are you giving them Xavier Worthy? You know you got to get through them to make the Super Bowl.
So Xavier Worthy went on the Rich Eisen show, and he just asked him about his draft process and what draft night was like for him. And Xavier Worthy said the Colts called him when they were on the clock at 15. And based off what Xavier Worthy said, there was an abrupt hang-up, just kind of like out of the blue, like, hey, this is the Colts, and then next thing you know, it's like the calls dropped. And so the Colts obviously took Latu. So I guess I say this.
Which one would you rather have? Yeah.
Well, you go that route, but if Latu would have gone like 14, for example,
you get Xavier Worthy?
Because I think so many people thought Colts would go corner.
Right.
Would they have gone Xavier Worthy? Dallas Turner, by the way, another name a lot of people liked during the draft process.
Oh, yeah.
He's a Minnesota Viking, hasn't really done much this season, so... Xavier Worthy's had, what would you say, a decent rookie season?
Yeah, okay, so he's been a little bit of a gadget player. He's got 235 yards, 19 catches, and 3 touchdowns. He's got a couple plays. He had one, was it week 1? I think week 1 he had the big play where he just accelerated.
Right. Yep.
He took the end around. I mean, he's obviously had a much better start than A.D. Mitchell has, but it's not like he has 5 touchdowns and 600 yards, right? Like, he's been okay. He has been, I mean, come on. He's not a 1. He's not a 2. He's a little bit of a gadget player. I don't know.
You're always curious just kind of how those draft calls play out, too. And, like, is it plan B, plan C? And so, yeah, I know a lot of people were asking about that. But the speedy, gadgety Xavier Worthy potentially has some Colts interest.
I will say this. I don't know when this becomes a conversation, but, Latu probably needs to do a little bit more. Right? I don't think that's a hot take, and I know sometimes we just
And again, Minnesota has struggled protecting Darnold.
Like I would like to see there be a game or two here. The defense can win a game, and Latu is a big part of it. Last thing before the pop quiz, did you see the Maui Invitational for next year?
No.
They put out the teams for the Maui
I think
Invitational
my Irish are in it maybe
for last
in 2 years.
It's NC State, Texas, USC, Washington State, Arizona State, UNLV, and Seton Hall. Is that good?
One more time.
Again, NC State, Texas, we'll say
right.
USC,
right.
Washington State, Arizona State, UNLV, Seton Hall.
Gosh, it sounds like the next iteration of like the Pac-12 or the Big 12.
Are the other preseason or pre-conference tournaments, are they ruining Maui for them to have that? Come on.
Notre Dame's in that thing in Vegas here in a couple weeks
Sure
where you
they
get
are.
$1 million just to play in it. And that's like loaded. I would assume people are going to be bending over backwards to try and get into that. All right, it's Freebie Friday for the pop quiz. Mark Dykton, go ahead. Who do we got on the phone line?
Pick a number.
Let's go with 3.
3. That would be Paul.
Hey, Paul.
Hello. Good morning.
Paul, good morning to you. You got any weekend plans?
Unfortunately, working tomorrow and then watching the NFL Sunday.
What do you do, Paul?
I sell insurance.
Oh, okay. And Saturday-wise, is this just part of the weekly routine, once a month?
A couple a month, usually. We rotate as an office, so a couple every month.
Did you pass the insurance test on the first try?
I did, yeah.
Good for you. It took me to the second one. I actually did pass the insurance test many, many years ago, KB.
Really? Wow.
On the second one. The first time
I did not know that about you.
I was so nervous I failed. Well, it was the first time I got fired in sports talk radio. You know how that is.
Certainly.
Well, company decided to close its doors, so I needed to do something. So, there you go.
Paul, I'm glad you passed that because I'm looking at this thing and I don't know if you're going to pass it.
No.
Great.
Yeah. Well, you already got all the swag, so it's a freebie Friday. All right, question number 1. Let's get it going, Paul. Let's get a winner here on this Friday. The Pacers in New Orleans tonight to face the Pelicans. Who leads the all-time series between the Pacers and the Pelicans/New Orleans Hornets since the franchise's move from Charlotte in 2002? Okay, so forget about Charlotte when they've been there in the Big Easy. Who leads the all-time series?
Let's go Pacers.
Paul, number 2 here. IU football team up in East Lansing against Sparty tomorrow afternoon. It's another trophy game. What trophy do the Hoosiers and Spartans play for on the football field? It's the bronze
spittoon.
Oh, he knew he was
didn't
listening.
even need it. Were you listening, Paul, or did you know that?
I was listening.
Yeah, I was about to say, nobody would know that.
Here comes some more hints your way.
Question number 3. It's November 1st. Who was the first player to hit a World Series home run in November? Hideki Matsui, Chase Utley, Steve Finley, Derek Jeter.
Let's go A.
Matsui? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we still haven't passed it yet. The New York Yankees fell to the Dodgers in Game 5 of the World Series Wednesday night after falling into that 0-3 hole. The Yankees were just the 4th team in World Series history to force a 5th game after being down 3-0. None of them forced a Game 6. Name the last team before this year to fall down 0-3 that did not get swept.
Ooh.
The 70 Reds, the 83 Phillies, the 06 Tigers, or the 15 Jets, or who the hell cares?
Good luck. Just pick one. Good luck.
C.
I mean,
2006 Tigers, yeah.
Who gives them?
That's the reason I bet the Dodgers in that game. They're plus money. I'm like, it's never happened before. Washington Commanders rookie quarterback Jane Daniels hit Noah Brown on a Hail Mary pass to beat the Bears. You remember that one, Mark. On Sunday, Chicago's had taken the lead on a how do you say it? Is it Roshan Johnson 1-yard touchdown with 25 seconds remaining. When was the last time that each team scored a go-ahead touchdown in the final 30 seconds of an NFL game? 2012, 1994, 1977, or it's never happened before? Good luck.
It's never happened before.
The 2015 Mets. Did I say the Jets? Scotty, apologies on that end. I got Thursday Night Football in my mind.
It's about the same thing. It's pretty close to the same thing.
Well, boys, when he got the first 2 right, I thought, he's going to pass this for sure. And
yeah.
Correcto. That is correct.
Yeah. Stay on hold, Paul. Question number 3. First, who was the first player to hit a home run in the World Series in the month of November? That was Derek Jeter back in 2001. Yeah! The 1970 Reds, the last team to fall down 0-3 in the World Series to not get swept. And then 1977, the last time 2 teams scored a touchdown, go-ahead touchdown in the final 30 seconds of an NFL game. How about that?
Should be a bit of a crisp night for high school football, so everybody heading out for that. It looks like precipitation. We won't have to dodge any of that. It's the most important part. So sectional finals for some of the smaller, I guess sectional semifinals, I should say. And then we'll continue to move on here in the month of November with the class.
Yeah, check out the podcast if you miss any of our shows. And obviously, we had Tony Dungy on today. Check it out, 1075thefan.com. JMV at 3, Jimmy at noon. Have a good weekend right here on The Fan.